Sacramento County Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll and establish a quorum?
Yes. Good morning, Supervisors Frost. Here. Kennedy. Here. Natoli.
Here.
Peters. Here. Cerna.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Thank you.
This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T UVerse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and is webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, July 17th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. This meeting is also broadcast live on KUBU Radio on 96.5 FM. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any local library branch.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Kennedy, will you do us the honor of leading us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed their summer recess the last couple of weeks. I do have an announcement, as has been customary during the pandemic. In compliance with directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, this meeting is live streamed and closed to the public. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make verbal comments at today's meeting, there are a number of ways to do so. You can dial 916-875-2500 to register your contact information. A deputy clerk will contact you and transfer you into the meeting when it is your turn to make a public comment. I should note that this is a new protocol, but it won't be the permanent one. Written comments are always accepted. You can send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and that's Sac County, SACCOUNTY. You can make a comment online at bospublicmeetings.saccounty.net. Your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. Okay, with that, will the clerk please call the consent matters?
Okay. For your consent matters, items 1 through 42. For item 34, you're adopting an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 16.85, Title 16, and this is relating to the roadway credit reimbursement provisions of the Florin Vineyard Community Plan Development Impact Fee. You waived reading on this on June 16th. And then for item 38, you're acting as a Sacramento County Water Agency. You are introducing an ordinance amending Title 3, Title 4, Title 5 of the Water Code relating to the exemption of water development impact fees for certain accessory dwelling units. You're waiving reading on this and continuing to July 28th for adoption. And this concludes the clerk's notes.
Okay. Any member of the board wish to pull an item for separate consideration or comment? Supervisor Natoli.
Yes, I don't need to pull the item off the consent calendar, but I did want to offer some comments on a couple of items, Mr. Chair. On items 21 and 25.
Okay.
If you just
21 is the approval of the Parkside Village subdivision final map and subdivision improvement agreement.
And then you can call it 25 too. The comment's going to refer to.
And then 25 is the North Vineyard Station Specific Plan Development Impact Fee Program. Authorize a reimbursement agreement for the design, construction, and advanced funding of roadway improvements associated with the Hedge 22 development.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I mentioned this in my briefing with Mr. Gill yesterday, that we continue to see activity. I support, obviously, both of these consent items, but a tremendous amount of activity in the Vineyard area, new home construction and development of commercial properties in that area. And with our action some months ago, as far as the fee program in that North Vineyard and Vineyard area, we took out of the calculation the crossing of the railroad, the Central California traction line in the area between Gerber and Florin Road. And so a lot of the development, I referenced 21 and 25 because they're in the vicinity. We see new neighborhoods being developed. People are pleased to be living there. They're pleased with their schools, their parks, and we've tried to keep pace, obviously, with road construction. But we don't have any mechanism currently for funding what's anticipated as a part of that plan, and that Waterman Road is a significant north-south connector within the community. It begins at Grant Line Road, and all of them is contemplated to someday maybe even go as far north as Jackson Highway. Obviously, that's many years out. But that crossing, that railroad crossing, is very key to neighborhood connectivity and to movement with a major arterial like that. A lot of it's constructed in some of those new neighborhoods, but it's going to stop dead end at the railroad tracks. And so I guess part of my reason for commenting on today is that we need to, through our transportation department and public works, take a look at how we contemplate financing that improvement, because people are going to be anticipating that, and as traffic pressures grow in the area, then it's going to be even more critical for neighborhood, for movement of not just motor vehicles, but obviously it would connect schools and parks and new neighborhoods together. And so I referenced that because, again, we took it out in order to accommodate some of the impacts to development as related to high fees in the area, but we need to have a strategy for how we're going to fund that crossing, because we continue to see maps, and again, it's healthy to see the new development. People are pleased with their new neighborhoods, but I want to make sure we get a chance to maybe have a conversation later this year about that. Mr. Gale, I see Mr. Hartwig's in the audience as well. So, okay, and then on a kind of unrelated item, but certainly in the same part of the world, item 32.
Item 32 is the Elk Grove Florin Road Bridge and Widening Project. It's the award of bid to De Silva Gates Construction. The environmental document is an environmental impact report.
And I would just say kudos to this. We've been working on this improvement for the better part of 20 years, and I know that Supervisors Kennedy and Cerna share portions of the area, but certainly we all, as county supervisors, with the Watt Avenue, South Watt, Elk Grove Florin connection, it connects the entirety of the county from Elk Grove all the way to the county line and beyond. This has been a key point of congestion and a lot of frustration out there, and I know that our Department of Transportation, I certainly want to give a shout out to Ron McCary and Dan Schumann and Mr. Hartwig and others who have worked on this over the course, as I said, over the better part of 2 decades of trying to put together the financing, but also the project and having to design it and redesign it. And this improvement will eliminate a log jam, but also make for safer movement for pedestrians and other modes of transportation along the corridor there. And so I'm glad to see that the bids came in well under what we estimated, and looking forward to seeing the project complete. So, thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Fox? Supervisor Peters? Kennedy? Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments from the public on items, consent items?
We do not have any public speakers for the consent matters.
Okay, very good. Then with that, I'd entertain a motion for consent.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Frost, second by Supervisor Kennedy. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Great, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that want to give comment on items not on the agenda?
Yes, so for your off-agenda comments, we have 6 speaker requests, and so I'm ready when you are. Bearings. Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record, and you do have 3 minutes for your comments.
Okay, my name is Kitty Bolte. Do I start my comment now?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Kitty Bolte. I live in Colonial Heights in Sacramento, and I'm calling because I think it's insane that 71% of the county's budget goes to law enforcement, particularly when the sheriff and his deputies are they've gone rogue. They're beyond the control of the county. So I'm calling to say that you should defund the sheriff, stop expanding the jail when we clearly don't need to, as we've been able to release tens of inmates during the coronavirus, and instead use that money to fund rental assistance, affordable housing, and things that actually make our communities better and safer. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record, and you will be given 3 minutes to make your comments, and go ahead with your comments.
My name is Jeffrey Tartagia, and I'm an advocate. And first, I would thank Phil Cerna for making this available. I understand this is a great difficulty. I believe you can hear me. My second comment will be, as I hear background of the noise through there, is that I believe you're having a protest related to the Sacramento Transit Authority Proposition A. I believe you members that are on the Sacramento Transit Authority need to not only rescind the Proposition A, but you need to come up with whether you're going to in 2022 or 2024 embark upon a Sacramento transportation tax. The STA board needs to do a study to determine the best way a tax should be generated to drive these concerns. And again, I will offer, I thank you, board, for doing this. It's a little disconcerting to have the background coming back in there, but I believe you can hear me, and can I hear a confirmation of that?
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. That's my end of my comment.
Thanks, Jeff.
We might want to remind folks to turn down their volume on their TV so there's no feedback.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record, and you will be given 3 minutes to make your comments.
30 seconds.
Thank you. My name is Courtney
3 minutes.
Hansen.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
30.
Go ahead.
Never mind. Side conversation.
Okay. I'd like to comment on a few items, so I'll keep it short. And these can all sort of be contextualized with an off-agenda comment, which is that there's never been a better time for this board to truly revisit the budget and deeply reimagine it. During this conversation of defunding law enforcement, that includes our sheriff's department, which is causing a lot of harm in our communities and takes a huge portion of the budget. So that's an off-agenda comment. I oppose item 19 because we know that police do not make domestic violence situations any safer. Item 48 regarding SHRA, this is a landlord bonus that does not ensure that tenants actually get to stay in their homes. And I ask this board to please ensure that CARES Act funding goes directly to supporting people in need. You don't need to go through landlords. Item number 30, the SCHA grant application. Just want to note that SHRA has an awful record of ensuring that we have adequate and habitable social housing in Sacramento County, which we know is possible and we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record, and you will be given 3 minutes to make your comments. Also, if you're watching the meeting in the background, could you please mute those devices, including the television?
Sure.
And you can go ahead with your comments.
Sure. My name is Kula Koenig, and I am a resident of Sacramento County, District 3, and it is with a heavy heart that I give this comment because the County of Sacramento has had a complete disregard for equity and social justice. There has been so many times where I have reached out to ask for things around community engagement and equity, and I have gotten blank stares or no response from those who are in positions of power. I reached out to find out how we were spending our COVID-19 dollars and was told that, you should ask Nav Gill, which is not the person that I elected. I then put out a survey to actually figure out what people wanted and send that follow-up to Britt Ferguson and Bruce Wagstaff because people wanted rental and mortgage assistance. Again, I was told by Bruce and Britt that they basically couldn't do that. I asked them to tell me about the process for how they would allocate those funds, and I heard nothing. You're about to finalize a budget in September. What I'm wondering is, why is the county has such blatant disregard for the needs of those who are most disenfranchised, who are impacted, who are under-resourced? Why is there such a blatant disregard for social justice? When I'm sitting in a meeting with the chiefs of staff as a member of the Human Services Coordinating Council and I ask about the plan that is in the general plan for community engagement, I get blank stares. When I go back to ask a follow-up in a meeting 3 months later, I still get blank stares. When you're doing your budget, what I am asking is that instead of the 70% of the general fund that's going to law enforcement, that money goes to health and human services and to community-led solutions. As a county, you have created a mountain. You have built a wall against any attempt to make you a more equitable organization. So my comment today is actually to the people who are listening, who care about social justice, to join us activists in electing people who care, in strategizing how to make your uncomfortable in your seat of privilege and your disregard for the least of these. Because we keep asking, I'm even asking now, but you're not even listening. So this comment is actually a plea to those who care, because I've lost faith in y'all as a board of supervisors to actually care about people. Because you don't respond, you give blank stares, you tell me to go to Navigator, who I did not elect. We are in a whole pandemic right now where nothing is as we know it. So you can't even be bold. You can't even be bold to change the system to be for the least of these, not just those who are more privileged in your district. I'm asking everyone else that cares about this to come join us at our press conference right now outside of the Board of Supervisors, because you're not going to listen to us. And so we have to change it ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comment. If you have any devices on watching this meeting, could you please silence them, and please go ahead with your comments.
Evan Minton. Hi, my name is Evan Minton, and I'm calling to state that I support the people's budget. Currently, 37% of the county general fund goes to the sheriff's department, and we need to ask if that's truly serving the people. Additionally, currently 71% of the county general fund goes to law enforcement, jails, and courts. And we need to ask if that's truly serving the people. I have lived and paid taxes in Sacramento County for over a third of my life. My answer to this question is that our budget and my tax dollars are not truly serving the people. I implore you to divest from the bloated sheriff's department and county jails and invest in community-based services instead. I also support Move the Vote in order to expand voter participation in California's local political arena. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Caller, please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you have the meeting running in the background, please silence your devices and go ahead with your comments.
My name is Regina Conley, and I thank you for this time where I can bring my concerns forward. I have written letters to all the supervisors and sent them to their email and to the clerk. My concern is this. I've been in the insurance industry for over 35 years. I was on the insurance carrier side for half of that time and left to go to the business side on my own and with another agency so that I could make sure that my clients their needs were best met, because the insurance carriers are not our friend. And I know very well that the insurance carriers will try to do their best to get out of paying for anything they don't have to pay for. And therein lies my concern, along with the safety of my neighbors and myself. Fireworks this year were absolutely ridiculous. It started in the middle of May and it carried on through and up to this past Sunday, when there were illegal fireworks going off in my neighborhood at 5:30 in the morning. On Nextdoor, my neighbors posted pictures of parts of pipe bombs that were in their yard and also in the streets. We reported the illegal fireworks and the fireworks that were going off before the time that they're allowed to go off, and we were told that there wasn't the manpower, there wasn't funding, and everybody blamed everybody else for it, and it just continued to go on. And my concern is this: if the county needs to have funding to make sure that fireworks are managed so that it's not happening, then we need to go to the state to get that money, or wherever. But it needs to stop. Our air quality is impacted. I deal with medical claims all of the time for my clients, and my mother died from COPD, and I know very well that it's dangerous for people when they can't breathe. I have 2 autoimmune diseases. It's hard for me to get around, and during this firework time, I was overwatering my yard and preoccupied with the fact that I had fireworks coming over my fence into my yard, landing on my grass. And this, California is a tinderbox, and I don't understand why we have a situation where we're allowing people to play with fire, and it just seems ridiculous to me. Now, I'm not completely against fireworks. I understand about Cal Expo and situations like that. That's okay, but the fact of the matter is that people are allowed to purchase online fireworks that are illegal, and that needs to stop. I know that other counties, Nevada County and counties in like Nevada County in California, and then counties in actual Nevada like Las Vegas and Washoe, have restricted fireworks, and I think that's what we need to do as well. That is basically my concern, and I'm hoping that we figure out a new way for the charities to come up with ways to...
Can you please wrap up your comments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Obviously, this is not well received. I just want to say that I know that everyone is getting sick of listening about this, but it's a firestorm going to happen, and I'm concerned that we're going to wait until senior homes are burnt down or businesses are burnt down before somebody does anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Regina.
We have one other person that got transferred in. So.
Okay.
Okay. Caller, please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you have the meeting running in the background, please silence those devices, and please go ahead with your comments.
Stacy Meyer. My comments are concerning Sacramento County's current COVID-19 state of affairs. First, why do the supervisors' meetings continue to be closed to your constituents? Who is making these decisions, and what metrics are they using? Because the metrics the state is using to determine which counties need to be closed business is based on faulty data. Just because a hospital patient tests positive for COVID does not mean that the patient is in the hospital because of COVID. Same goes for patients in intensive care. These are important distinctions that need to be made. According to the county's public health COVID-19 dashboard as of last Friday, the number of people who have died in Sac County due to COVID-19 stood at 79. That is 0.0052% of the population, or 5 per 100 inhabitants. It was also noted that all 79 deaths were among persons aged 65 and older, had underlying conditions and or other risk factors. Compare that to the unemployment figures. The number of unemployed in Sacramento County at last official count, May 1st, was 98,300. That is 6,434 per 100,000 inhabitants. This is criminal. Although every death, no matter what the cause, is sad, These COVID numbers do not necessitate a need to close or severely limit businesses and continue to decimate our local economy and ruin people's lives. And they certainly do not justify keeping your constituents locked out of these meetings. I am requesting a town hall meeting to include the citizens, county supervisors, and the county health officer because there has been too much misinformation, confusion, and unnecessary fear spread throughout the community, especially by the governor and the media. Local small businesses simply cannot survive in this current environment, and I fear for our future. We need to come together and get to the truth of this matter. With Governor Newsom ordering businesses to once again close without a legislative process to do so, I urge you to issue a proclamation to end the state of emergency in Sacramento immediately and save our community from certain economic ruin. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I believe that concludes our telephonic public comment.
Mr. Chair, the public meeting, the public access is closed. This is only staff who should be in the chambers at this time.
Okay, very good, thank you. But does that conclude our?
This concludes our comments, and just I want to say for the record, the public can dial 916-875-2500 if they would like to make a public comment during the meeting.
Okay, and again, I'll just emphasize that the system that we're using today, which I freely admit is a bit clumsy, but is I think better than what we had before, which enables folks to communicate in real time with the board to express their concerns on items, on agenda items, and items about items that are not posted is temporary. So we do expect to have something that's going to work a little bit better in the not too distant future. Supervisor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. And to the clerk, well done.
Is your mic on?
Yeah. Okay. Although I'm socially distanced from it. Mr. Gill, I just wanted to follow up on the comment on the fireworks. This is something that we all visit usually starts in May, and it seems to be every year worse and worse. Seems like we're starting to get ahead of it the last couple of years, and that kind of fell away with the committee that was set up to work on the issue. And so it doesn't have to be an agendized item, but if you could get back to the board and just give us a update on what the status of that organization is, and if there's any movement to address this issue before we get to next summer. I agree with the caller and all of the callers that have called into our office. It is getting out of hand. I think we've seen the video from KCRA. It looked like the revolution. Yeah. I think that after we get through July, we tend to set it aside, and I'd like to put it at the front of the forefront of the board's agenda for addressing for the next summer.
Got it. Thank you. Supervisor Tully.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And certainly want to extend appreciation to Chair and to our clerk for working to accommodate in real time commentary at today's meeting, whether it's on agendized or non-agendized items. And I heard what you said as I punched up to address this, but it looks as though we're going to be into at least the situation we're in currently relative to restrictions related to movement and interactions. But I would hope, again, in a short amount of time, that we could find a way to actually, again, and it would have to be done in a way that's still safe and in compliance with health orders, that we could actually accommodate folks in these chambers and do it in a way if they have to enter and then exit individually or in some other manner. But as I see, obviously in the audience today, we have a limited number of staff, and some of those obviously supporting this meeting's efforts, and we've got stickers that have been on the chairs now for several months that say media, but I think we need to look to a way, and particularly in light of, I think, the comments that we've been receiving related to any item that's on the agenda, but as it relates to budget, and I know you stressed that before we actually had the the summer break, that's going to be a time when there's going to be, I think, a great deal of interest, as there currently is, but a real focus in on this board's decisions and deliberations. And so, again, I know that we've talked about Zoom, and today, again, I think was, at least a right step forward relative to accommodating real time. But I'm very interested, as I know, I'm sure others on this board, if not all of us, trying to find a way to accommodate folks safely, but also to allow them to exercise a very important aspect of our deliberations, that is the public comments and views that are held relative to actions that we're going to be called upon to take here in the upcoming weeks. Second, I would just like to comment and certainly echo some of the comments by Supervisor Kennedy that the calls to my office started to come in even before. I mean, we heard Ms. Connolly on the phone this morning, but we started getting calls, well in advance of the Independence Day weekend. And last year, I think we made some, headway. I would concur that there was a task force which the county participated. We worked with the industry, the legal fireworks industry, and with our fire agencies and law enforcement. This year, we didn't have that same presence as it related to law enforcement. It wasn't a big budget item last year. I think it was, modest. It may have been $100,000 devoted. Obviously, there's overtime and some, deployment of folks during a holiday period. But I just think that we got to be serious about this. Is that the threat, the fire danger, and to me, this the images I saw on some of the television coverage. And even in some of the more rural areas of the county, it was worse than it was last year, or that I remember anyway. And so we continue to have to please. We need to make this a priority. I mean, if we talk about a lot of priorities, but I believe that we need to keep the focus on, and to Mr. Kennedy's point that we get into the latter parts of the summer and then into winter, and it kind of gets set aside. But we need to be proactive to the degree that we can. And if online sales of illegal fireworks is contributing to access, then we ought to have somebody take a look at that. I mean, again, it requires enforcement. The state fire marshal's involved in this, but I think certainly it's an important effort, and it may be that and not everybody's affected the same way by it, but it does have costs associated with it, and certainly presents, I think, a imminent threat in a lot of cases. And some of those displays were the types you would see if Cal Expo actually had done a display. It was amazing to me. Those are mortar rounds. That's what they are. They're not fireworks. They're mortar rounds. And I just think that presents hazards to the folks that are igniting them, and certainly to those that are watching up close, but also to neighborhoods and to residents across this county. And so if we're serious about doing something, then we need to have a conversation, obviously, with the sheriff and with our fire agencies, and figure out what it is we can do to at least be better. And again, it may only pertain to the unincorporated area, but nonetheless, working in cooperation to find a way to at least make an effort to do something. Otherwise, it's just, people have at it, and we'll hear these comments, every year in greater numbers. Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Frost.
I just wanted to thank Chair Cerna for making arrangements for us to have more lifelike public comment. The very foundation of American government is that we represent the people, and it's, even though the clerks do such an amazing job at reading those public comments, there's something different about hearing their real voice and the tones and the passion behind the comments that they're making. And so thank you, Chair Cerna. And I also wanted to give some kudos to Flo Evans, who's our clerk, who is so well-spoken and is doing such an amazing job with that phone down there. So thank you very much, Chair Cerna.
Thank you, Supervisor Frost, and I'll close this part of our commentary with certainly my thanks to Flo and her very capable staff for working strenuously during our recess to make sure that, again, the public has real-time access to petition their Board of Supervisors. As Supervisor Frost just articulated, it's a key element of what we do in terms of our decision-making is certainly hearing from those that we have the honor of representing, and to do so, again, in real time is very important. I also want to express my strong agreement with Supervisor Natoli in terms of the interest, and I think it's probably shared by all of us, of having some sense of normalcy achieved in the not-too-distant future relative to in-person testimony, certainly while making sure that we keep people safe and appropriately socially distanced. I think that has to be and remain at the forefront of our agenda to see that happens. It's a bit challenging at the moment, especially in light of just yesterday's direction from the governor in terms of going backwards and closing some of the economic activity, social activity that was previously reopened. That makes it that much more difficult. But again, it's important that we keep our eye on our ability to welcome folks into their chambers. It's not our chambers, it's theirs. So, and then lastly, I just want to make note that we did receive a number of written comments on a number of items on consent and on timed matters as well. So those certainly are going to find their way into the record.
Correct.
So thank you. With that, our next item, please.
Okay, so for item 43, this is the Watt Avenue Property and Business Improvement District. This is the public hearing on the renewal of the district and the levy of assessments, tabulation of assessment ballots, and adopt resolutions renewing the district and authorizing the levy of assessments for fiscal year 2021. The environmental determination is exempt.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Bob Davison, the Division Chief of the County Engineering Division. And I'm pleased to present this item to renew the Watt Avenue P-bid for a term of 10 years. This P-bid was first approved by the board in 2015, and the Watt Avenue P-bid Association has been providing services to the area, which is, since that time, which is in the vicinity of Roosevelt Road, Watt Avenue, north of Interstate 80. Later in the agenda, I believe you will be hearing testimony regarding the impact of the P-bid during the annual report item that is later on in the agenda. The proposed renewal includes an expansion area, so the district now includes 195 properties, or will if the renewal is approved, and that's up from 174 properties that were previously in the district. The board approved the resolution of intention to renew the district on May 5th, and that resolution of intention set today's public hearing. After the resolution of intention was approved, staff sent out, mailed 140 ballots and notices to 129 property owners in the district, and the ballots were to be returned to the clerk of the board, and ballots may be still returned up to the close of this public hearing. So far, 65 ballots have been received. Also, I want to point out one written protest was received, and that has been included in the record. With that, I recommend that the board open the public hearing and consider any comments or testimony. After that, close the public hearing and then take the first two actions. The first action is to recognize the exempt status of the project pursuant to CEQA, and then the second action is to designate Susan Getz, the manager of special districts, to conduct the ballot tabulation, which I'll give details on in a second, and then continue this item till 2 p.m. For the results of the tabulation and for further action. The tabulation is required to be held in a public place, so shortly after this hearing, the tabulation will be held in the neighboring building to this building, 827 7th Street, room 304, in the conference room on the 3rd floor. Due to the COVID pandemic, there's a limitation of 7 people to be included in that room. Given past tabulations, they're usually not that well attended. That should accommodate everyone. Actually, if for some reason we have more than 7 people, and that includes staff too, that need to be a part of the tabulation, we also have a Skype call set up, and my staff will be able to provide that Skype number to anybody who's interested in it. So with that, I recommend that you open and close the hearing and take the first 2 actions.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Any questions for Bob? Okay. With that, I will open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak remotely?
You do not have anyone signed up for this item.
Okay. I will close the public hearing. And then are we just giving direction then to do the tabulation?
Correct. Take action on the environmental document, which is item 1, and then designate Susan Getz, the manager of special districts, to conduct the tabulation and continue this item until 2 p.m.
Okay. Supervisor Peters.
I'll move the item.
Okay, it's been moved by Supervisor Peters, seconded by Supervisor Frost. Please vote.
Sorry, you moved too fast for me.
I know, sorry about that. Mr. Natoli? Unanimous vote.
Great, thank you. Then we'll hear back from you this afternoon, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you, Bob. All right.
Okay.
Next item, please.
Item 44 is the Sacramento County Landscape Maintenance District Zone 4, public hearing on proposed assessment for fiscal year 2021. Confirm the assessment diagram and levy assessments.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, Chair Cerna, members of the board, Lupe Rodriguez with the Transportation Department. And today's item is a public hearing on the proposed assessments for the Landscape Maintenance District for fiscal year 2020-2021. Today we're asking the board to open the public hearing, consider public testimony, close the public hearing, and adopt a attached resolution to confirm the assessment diagram and levy assessments for the Sacramento County Landscape Maintenance District for fiscal year 2021. The Landscape Maintenance District provides funding for the maintenance of landscape medians, roadway frontages, and open spaces within the district. The district's boundaries are shown in Attachment 1. The boundaries cover approximately 19 areas in the district, with the majority of them being in the North County and the more Antelope area. Overall, the district maintains approximately 2.1 million square feet of landscape areas within the district. The revenue is approximately, the district currently collects an annual assessment of $42.50 per residential property and $66.51 per acre for commercial properties. This accounts for approximately $500,000 in revenue generated in the district, which does not fully fund the operational costs of the district. Due to Proposition 218, we have not been able to increase the assessments. Over the years, a contribution from the road fund has allowed us to balance the budget in the district. Next year's budget for the district is approximately $1.1 million and is as detailed in the engineer's report. The road fund contribution this year is anticipated to be $364,904. So today we're asking the board to adopt the attached resolution to confirm the assessment diagram and levy assessments within the Sacramento County Landscape Maintenance District for fiscal year 2020-2021. And that concludes my short presentation, and be available for questions.
Great. Thank you, Lupe. Supervisor Tully.
Yeah, just a quick question. So Lupe, again, as you noted, most of these are located north of the American River, but there are a couple of areas, one in the Rosemont area, and then one down in the South Sacramento area. But I guess I'm curious when it comes to replacement of plant material and so forth. You know, some of these are not center medians; they're either areas that are adjacent to developments that have been approved over the years and so forth. Who is responsible to make sure that, again, irrespective of what the budget is that if things need to be replaced or freshened up and so forth, is that part of the contract? It's one thing to go in there and mow if there's lawns, one thing to go prune and if there's a branch that needs to be trimmed and so forth for visibility for the right-of-way. But I know you have folks in the department that oversee that, but is there some regular maintenance schedule beyond just the normal maintenance that would say that, okay, that, either trees need to be removed or those tree species may have run their course or new shrubbery? When do those get freshened up? Again, I know you struggle, obviously there's a contribution from the road fund, although it's pretty modest compared to the amount of area that's covered here. So I guess I'm curious about that.
So we have an ongoing program. Staff has been really good about evaluating the different areas. So as there's a need for some replacement in some areas, that's included in the program. Some irrigation upgrades too. So there's some minor work that is included in this program. Not a big program where we do big projects, but from a maintenance perspective, we're able to change out some landscape areas that are in smaller areas that are needing of replacement.
Okay. And do you depend upon citizen reports on that, or do we do? And obviously you contract for the maintenance. Do you depend upon your contractor, or do you have I know Brett Creeker for years was in the department there, maybe still you, but does somebody go out and regularly inspect this on a annual or semi-annual basis to see? Yeah.
So we have actually Brett's here in the office if we want to hear. So I have Brett and one of his staff that are actually out in the field most of the time, evaluating, checking the landscape areas and with any issues, and coordinating with the contractors to make sure that we are in the right place.
And the contractors know that they're responsible. So if a tree dies and they need to take it out and then replace it, that's covered in the contract, or is that an add-on?
I think that's covered in the contract.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks.
Supervisor Peters.
Thank you. Back to Don's comment about replacing landscaping items. I believe it is covered in the contract, but I would say rarely does a contractor notice it themselves, and you have to wait for someone to call it in. And that's not something the general public should have to do, and I think it depends on those of us who are roaming around our districts to notice the big holes in the landscaping. And I wish there were some ability of the transportation department to review this in some way, and I think you should take a look at that, because the only way landscaping gets replaced in my district is if I call and complain. And that is not a very efficient way, and it's not fair given the contract that they are supposed to replace the plants, I'd say. So that's my comment about that. And I hope you could come back to us with some ideas. I mean, with drones and all the cameras you've got on traffic signals and things like that, you ought to be able to look at the landscaping in many cases anyway. So and the other thing is noting that this is the same amount of money that's been assessed for 26 years.
Correct.
And it's causing a road fund contribution of $365,000 a year. And I just don't think the road fund can afford that anymore, given the status of our roads. I think we've got to come up with something else. This year is not the year probably, and it's too late, to raise the assessment, but I would encourage you to, talk to people consultants, and talk to them about what can be done to fix this assessment. I mean, Measure A is not going to, be on the ballot. We're wrestling with SACOG about fair shares. There's a lot of things going on, and none of them so far are giving us more money for our road fund. So I hate to see any expenditure for the road fund on things that should be paid for another way.
Correct. Yeah, so. There was a recent effort a few years back trying to work with a consultant to try to come up with a plan, and at that time it wasn't successful, but we could try again, look at it a little bit further to see if there's a different way we could look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions for Lupe, we do have to open a public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. In the public hearing, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No comments.
Okay, close the public hearing and bring it back for board consideration.
Move staff recommendation.
It's been moved by Supervisor Natoli, seconded by Supervisor Kennedy. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
Item 45 is County Service Area Number 10, Benefit Zone Number 3, public hearing on the written report of service charges for fiscal year 2021, confirmed report, and fixed charges.
You're back, Bob.
Good morning. Yes, I am back. And I'm here to give a short presentation on the annual actions for County Service Area Number 10. County Service Area Number 10 was formed in 2003 to provide trip reduction services for new growth areas in the county. The current active zone is Zone 3, which includes the North Vineyard Station, Florin Vineyard, and the Wild Hawk North areas. In May, your board received the written report of operating requirements and service charges for fiscal year 2021 and set today's public hearing. In the written report, it proposed increases to the service charges based on the Consumer Price Index, which this year is 3.31%. Highlights of the budget in the report include $140,000 for the 50 corridor TMA. It's a contract with the Department of Transportation, and that's to provide a variety of trip reduction services, which includes van pool services. And last year we reported that van pools increased to 4 van pools for the area. And actually, up till February, before the COVID pandemic, the 4 vans resulted in a reduction of more than 6,000 peak hour trips. Now, the van pools are still running, but since the COVID pandemic, there's been about a 50% reduction in ridership, which is not surprising given the current state of affairs. The budget also includes $250,000 for reserves, which could be used for services, including the implementation of shuttle services, which is still planned in the future. If you recall, the Department of Transportation conducted a study, and they predicted that transit shuttle services can be implemented between 3,000 and 4,000 dwelling unit equivalents in the area. And at this point in time, we have just over 2,000 dwelling unit equivalents in the area. So it will still be several years before shuttle services get implemented. With that, I'm going to recommend that your board open the public hearing, consider any testimony, close the hearing, and then adopt the resolution to confirm the written report of service charges and fixed service charges for fiscal year 2020-21. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you, Bob. Any questions for Bob? Okay, if not, I will open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, you don't.
Okay, thank you. We will close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board for consideration. It's been moved by Supervisor Frost. The chair will second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Okay, for item 46, you are acting as the Sacramento County Water Agency. This is the public hearing to proceed with projects and levy assessments in Zone 13 of the Sacramento County Water Agency for fiscal year 2021.
Good morning. I'm Carrie Schmitz with the Department of Water Resources. I'm here today to introduce the public hearing for fiscal year 2021 Zone 13 assessment. In 1987, the board approved the formation of Zone 13 and the levying of assessments in the zone. The purpose of Zone 13 is to fund long-range planning studies related to water supply, drainage, and flood control, which benefit properties in the zone. Assessments are levied per parcel based on land use, and the assessment methodology is the same as has been approved the last 23 years. If approved, the 2021 assessment will generate approximately $2.3 million for the zone. The zone currently funds programs such as compliance with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, the Delta Communities Flood Protection Act, the Water Forum Successor Effort, and the Habitat Management element. And it currently administers 2 grants on behalf of the Cosumnes Groundwater Basin. This morning, I ask that your board take the following actions. Open the public hearing regarding the projects proposed for Zone 13 and the levy of assessments in the zone. Consider public testimony, close the public hearing, and adopt the resolution instituting projects and levying assessments in Zone 13 for fiscal year 2021. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff? Not, I'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone sign up to speak?
No.
Close the public hearing. Supervisor Tully.
Yes, I would move the item, but I just wanted to comment to Carrie and certainly to the department. I know that as you went through in your brief summary, it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's a lot embodied in any number of the efforts that you related, certainly the groundwater management work that's going on. And again, I know that we're a very strong partner and have taken a leadership role in helping to not just secure the funding, but also obviously to coordinate activities on that front, to work with the flood protection grant in the Delta. And I know your colleagues in the department are working on that and working with consultants and certainly local folks down there. And obviously the water forum and the habitat portion of it. So, you know, I think there's good value attributed to what Zone 13 does, and again, it's ongoing, but I think it's very, very important work from a standpoint of water supply and flood protection, and certainly conservation and environmental stewardship. So again, thanks, Carrie, for your work and the work of your department.
Thank you.
I move the item.
Okay, it's been moved by Supervisor Tully. Chair will second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, for item 47, you're now back as the Board of Supervisors. Approve the 2019 annual reports for the Antelope, Carmichael, Florin Road, Fulton Avenue, and Watt Avenue Property and Business Improvement Districts, and provide for the levy of assessments for fiscal year 2021.
Just real quick before we hear from staff, I failed to open the public hearing, I believe.
No, you did.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep, you did. You got it
Sure.
covered. You were quick.
Right.
You were really quick.
I was in my groove there, so.
Good job.
All right, very good.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm Dorothy Kodani with the County Engineering Division, and I'm here to present this item. PBIDs are required to submit written reports for each year of operation in accordance with the Streets and Highways Code. These reports summarize prior year activities, accomplishments, and financial positions, along with providing the same information for the upcoming year. This item requests that your board approve 5 annual reports and adopt 4 resolutions, which authorize the upcoming levy of assessments for 4 of the 5 PBIDs within the county. The following executive directors are present to address your board today. And for the Antelope PBID, we have Mr. Chris Evans. For Florin, Ms. Corey DeRue. For Watt Avenue, we have Rebecca Evans. And Melinda Epler sends her, is very sorry that she can't be here. I think she contacted Supervisor Peters to let her know that she would not be here for the first time in 17 years.
Right.
So unless there are any questions for the board, specifically for county staff, and prior to proceeding with the recommended actions, I'd like to hand over this presentation to the aforementioned executive directors.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff before we hear from the executive directors? Seeing none, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
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 I'm Chris Evans. I'm with the ABC District, the Antelope District. I want to start off by first of all saying thank you to you. We're going through some very strange times. I know in my district we're going through some very strange times. And I know that each and every day the 5 of you are faced with unbelievable decisions. And I think you're doing a great job. I know that there's a lot of people out there who have different opinions, but you guys are doing great, and we appreciate your strong support. We also appreciate the support of your families. We know that every day that they're sacrificing as well, and all the extra time you're putting in. And lastly, we appreciate the strong support you have for PBIDs. You've got 4 PBIDs here today, and I think we've got some great information for you and some great updates. In the ABC District, we have one simple theory. It's the theory I've had my whole life. It's kind of my motto. Every day is a bright new day with unlimited possibilities. And it doesn't matter what you did yesterday, but today is a bright new day. And we move forward that way. 78% of the funds in our district go towards security. Our security is currently handled by SPS, Sacramento Protective Services, but we have a policy of compassionate compliance. The very first thing we do with everybody we meet in the district, if they have an issue, and obviously the vast majority of the people we meet that have issues, it's drug addiction. Drug addiction is the #1 issue that our security team meets every single day. It's not homelessness. We call it homelessness, but it's drug addiction. To that end, we provide them with resources. We get them as much help as we possibly can through the compassion part of the compassionate compliance. We truly try to help anybody in need. We work closely with the HOT team. The homeless outreach team for the Sacramento Sheriff's is instrumental. The POP team, they're unbelievable in helping us within the district. We also work with the other PBIDs, and this is what I'm really excited about. The PBIDs in the last year, now my district only had 10 and a half months last year. It was our first year. We're just moving into our second year. And in that period of time, we've already been able to work with the other PBIDs. We have bi-weekly meetings where we're finding a lot of problems in one PBID extend into another PBID. And by working cooperatively together with the Sacramento Sheriff's Department, the HOT team, the POP team, we're solving some of those problems. We do have bi-weekly Zoom meetings, we have security updates. And the last thing I really want to tell you about on security is a new thing that we have called 602 reports. And basically what we're doing is we're tracking those individuals who have notices of trespass from one PBID to another, and we're finding those individuals who need more help. And when we can identify somebody who's been in one district and got 10 602s, and gone to another district and got 5 602s, and gone to another district and gotten 3 or 4 602s, we can identify those people as people who need help. And we try to reach out to them and find out what we can do to help them. So that's what 602's reports does. Interestingly enough, our average calls right now, last year in 2019, we had 44 calls a month for service for our security team. They did about 11 notices of trespass and about 4 major events. So if you figure a regular call takes about 20 minutes, a 602 issuing a 602 with proper ID takes about 45 minutes, and a major call takes about 90 minutes. That means there was about 1,008 hours last year of time our security team put in that was not calls to the Sacramento Sheriff's Department.
Can I ask, what constitutes a major incident?
Major incident would be something where there's an arrest, or the other day a major incident in 80 Watt there was actually a shooting. So anything the security team has to respond to that would be typically involve the Sheriff's Department as well, other than 602s or notices of trespass. What's interesting about that is that's $28,700, because when we pay the Sacramento Sheriff's Department for their off-duty, it's about $88 an hour. So if you see that we've taken over 1,008 hours worth of work off of the Sacramento Sheriff's Department in a year, that works out to about $28,000 last year. And this year, by the way, unfortunately, we're trending, instead of having 44 calls a month, we're up to 95. Instead of having 11 notices of trespass, we're up to 45. So this year, we're well on track to save about $88,000 worth of services for the Sheriff's Department that the PBID will assume through our security teams.
Do you have any trend data that shows any distinction in calls for service or security issues after the third week of March when we went into lockdown?
We can absolutely get that for you. The 602 reports actually allows us to track that to not only when they were issued, but where they were issued and what day.
I just think it would be kind of interesting to see what effect, if any, the stay-at-home order may have had, whether it be negative or positive on those calls for service.
No, I agree. And each week, not only does the sheriff's staff, Captain Barnes, all the sheriff, the HOT team, but they get copies of that report, but so does the Data Processing Center for Sacramento County. And we work cooperatively with them to exchange data and make sure we've got accurate information going out to security officers as well.
Very good.
In closing, let me just say the last thing we do, the second major, 78% of our money goes into security. The next biggest one is 8%, and that goes into maintenance and cleanup. And right now in the Antelope District, when we started, we averaged about 33 overnight parkers a night. We averaged about 12 semis parked in the district illegally overnight, and we had about 8 homeless encampments that had been there for a substantial period of time. All of those issues are resolved with the exception of we're now down to 6 encampments, which with the HOT team we're able to help and maintain on a pretty regular basis. But again, in closing, I just want to say we find the HOT team and the POP team to be instrumental in maintaining control within our district. Because of the laws the voters have passed, you well know, there's very little resources available for how we can get some of these addicted people help. And the HOT team has the ability to help us do that. And we count on them. They're instrumental in getting what we do. If we didn't have the HOT team the way they are right now, these numbers would probably be double, in my personal opinion. And just in closing, one last thing I'd like to say, Supervisor Peters, thank you very much. I haven't had a lot of opportunity to work with you, but the few times we did, she kept calling me the PBID guy. So I have enjoyed working with you, and I appreciate your service, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Peters.
Just wanted to, it's not really a question, but you were talking about the pop team and the hot team during the protests and the rioting and specifically the looting. The North Area Commander was really helpful using the P-bids to disseminate information to businesses about what was going on and how to report things. And I mean, I heard from so many people saying it was so very helpful to have another place of information about a subject that, we as supervisors may not be as in tune with as the sheriff department.
Yeah,
And
Captain
he
Barnes
did just a great job.
Captain Barnes was leading meetings just about every other day, Zoom meetings,
Yeah.
and we'd have 15, 20 people in there so that there was great communication and everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Supervisor Frost?
Chris, before you go away, I just wanted to...
I keep trying to get away.
Well, first I wanted to say that it's appreciated that the property owners are willing to participate in these P-bids and invest in their community. It really makes a huge difference. And I think it's amazing how you all work together. You guys are rock stars, all of you. And I wondered if you could, is someone today going to share a little bit about the Bolo Text, the phone app, how you
I wasn't going to, but I can take 15 seconds. It's easy.
Yeah.
What we found was that when a robbery happened in one of our self-stores, like a mobile store or something, typically within a very short period of time, there's other areas that were impacted as well, other cell stores, other things. So we've created a texting system called Bolo Text, B-O-L-O, be on the lookout, text. Anybody can register for it. They put in their area, and when we are notified of a problem, we immediately send out a text to everybody else in that district, letting them know that there was just a robbery at the mobile store or at the T-Mobile store or whatever, just to be on alert. And so Bolo Text is actually pretty cool because when we find out something's going on, we let everybody in the district know, everybody's ears are up, and we haven't had a lot of cases where there's been a string of things, 2 or 3 things happening within the district, just because people are aware. And that's fairly new, but anybody can register. It's BOLOtext.com. Once they register, they put in their zip code, and they'll automatically get updates. There's no cost.
That's really great. And I want to thank you for proactively, when you come to me with issues regarding antelope, you always try to bring solutions, and you're looking for solutions. The P-bids made a huge difference in antelope, and hopefully we can get some more of those in some of the other areas. But thanks for all that you do. Thank you for your leadership.
Oh, thank you. Can I leave now?
You may. All right. You have others?
These are never at the right height for me. Good morning, esteemed Board of Supervisors. My name is Corey DeRue. I am the Executive Director for the Florin Road Property and Business Improvement District. We normally provide a short, fun video. I think last year it was superhero themed. Given the light of the coronavirus situation, we didn't provide one, but we look forward to Watt Avenue's video. We have come here today just to provide a highlight reel of some of the accomplishments and some of the things that we've gotten done over the year. 1997, we were founded. We are over 26 million square feet. We have hundreds of property owners and business owners as the other P-bids. We have always been our main goal to provide a stable funding source for improvements within our district. Like the other P-bids, a lot of our funding is expelled into our clean and safe services. We are projecting for 2020, we will be spending approximately $262,000 in clean and safe services alone. We provide, of course, cleanup crews, maintenance, security services, and the like.
Can I interrupt for a sec? What are we looking at?
Florin? My video. Oh, I don't know what that is.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's Watts.
They're in the back controlling this. I didn't even
All right.
realize something.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I was wondering what it was myself. Homeless Navigator's success as our Homeless Navigator has been able to reach out to over 1,650 people. That helped over 102 individuals between the macro district and the Florin PBID district. That's 136 clients, and 21 families were helped. We in our PBID often celebrate those successes as a group. We have our standing room only monthly meetings. There are security task force meetings. We have often upwards of 50 to 60 individuals from our district who will come to support and help with everything that we do. With that said, we had over 1,500 calls for security for the year. That is up from last year. But our security company, California Patrol Operations, is doing a great job helping to stay on top of the security concerns that we have in our area. Our maintenance achievements, we have over 1,400 bags of trash. That doesn't sound like much, but we have over 117,000 pounds to the landfill over the last year. We were able to remove 483 carts, wayward lost carts. Better than children. So wayward lost carts out of our district and back into the hands of where they need to go. So all in all, it was a very successful year. We've continued to keep going. I think that, as you heard previously, the challenges are increasing, the crime rates are increasing, the calls, the volume, the dumping, all of the issues that we typically deal with are all on the increase. And so we've been able to maintain and continue that growth, which is we're very proud of that. Our foundation last year was able to help the Sheriff's Department. We helped our neighborhood associations in our area for their National Night Out. We helped sponsor the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Agents. We helped the Wellness and Recovery Center South, which is also provides mental health services in our area. We helped with just special events at the high school with the students, with the Vietnamese Chamber, Little Saigon community, and continued with that connection of growth within our district. So with that, I just wanted to come say hi. It's nice to actually see everybody in person. I haven't seen folks in a long time. And so just a quick hello and a highlight reel. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Morning.
I can't hear, I can't speak, I can't think with that thing on. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share information. My name is Rebecca Evans. I'm the Executive Director for the 80-Watt District PBID. And we are today looking at our 5-year end of for our renewal. So, I'm looking bigger picture even than just from last year, but I just wanted to share a few things so that we can just highlight some of the accomplishments that you have been supporting. From this whole year has been a lot of extra jobs. We have since the 2015 when the PBID started, we've brought in 2,561 jobs in just our little area. We are 45% decreased in crime. I know that the 80-Watt District was one of the, if you research it, it was one of the worst locations in all of California for sure. And so to have 45% decrease is absolutely huge. It is now a location where you can have a business and be safe because we have 24-hour service of security. On top of that, the cleanliness is just always worked on, and we're constantly working with those that need help. But we're constantly supporting our businesses as well with workshops and just all kinds of things. We've had in the last year over almost 6,000 calls for service in the security, which is a huge number. And making a long story short, we're excited. We have Mercy Housing is just opened. We hopefully will be able to tour soon. But thank you, Honorable Peters. It's just such an exciting thing because it's affordable housing in our location. So that's given a lot of extra things. As the other two PBIDs, just wanted to say thank you to our law enforcement. With the COVID, with the the rioting, the whole thing, we were able to not have hardly any problems so far at all, due to the fact that we got on the phone with the Sheriff's Department, our security, and all the PBIDs jointly to say what was happening, where it was happening, why it was happening. We even had some of our store owners get on there, and they were the ones that kind of figured out how to follow the trends of where things were happening. So for the 80-watt district, I think a lot of people thought that it was going to be a bad place, and it was not at all. So for that, I'm extremely thankful. The hot team, the pop team, I'll say it again as well. We could not do what we're doing, our security team. But I also want to thank, we have representatives from your offices, Vanessa McCarthy Olmsted. She has been incredible, and I just want to say thank you. And I know that you're leaving us soon, and I'm not sure when that even happens, but Supervisor Peters, thank you so much. You have given us fencing and different things like that that obviously we could not have done without your support. So I know that on behalf of all the PBIDs, your support of the PBIDs means you're supporting thousands of businesses, thousands of jobs, thousands of residents to be able to be safe to go out of their homes at night. So thank you so much. I do have a video. I don't know where it went, and it's never going to be up to Corey's level, but I just wanted to show you some pictures.
Great.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And as you can see, we have lots of partnerships. And again, this is a team effort. And that's one of the most exciting things that coming up to Sacramento County has been for me personally, is the team effort. So on behalf of my team, thank you so much for supporting and appreciating our PBIDs.
Great.
Thank you.
Supervisor Peters?
Before you leave, I just wanted to say Watt 80 district has a source of pride for me. My goal was to try and clean up the entrance to North Highlands in hopes that it would spread down Watt Avenue and make it a nicer place to live and do business. And I think this PBID, with its you and other executive directors, but particularly the board of directors, has done such a good job. And of course, Vanessa,
yes.
who is the cheerleader and the workhorse there. But I think it shows very much what a community can do if they work together to make it better. And
Absolutely.
I'm just really proud of what you've done. So
Thank you.
Congratulations, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you so very much.
Great, thank you.
One last thing is, again, just with that, the residents have called me and said thank you. So again, thank you. Have a great day. Bless you.
Thank you. You too. Anyone else? Well, yeah, we're gonna get some concluding remarks from staff then. Looks like we are.
Oh, well, thank you. With that, I just asked that the board take the actions as recommended.
Okay.
I'll move the item.
Been moved by Supervisor Peters and seconded by Supervisor Frost. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for item 48, you are acting as the Board of Supervisors and Housing Authority of the County of Sacramento. This is the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency 2020 Budget Update.
Good morning, Chair Cerna and Supervisors. My name is Susanna Jackson, and I am the Chief Financial Officer of SHRA, and I am here to present to you the 2020 budget update. As you may be aware, the coronavirus has changed budget outlooks across the nation. SHRA is considered an essential business, and we quickly adjusted our operations to maintain acceptable service levels to the public while protecting employees and vendors. During the development of the 2020 budget, as to be expected, a worldwide pandemic was not anticipated. Expenses for 2020 have increased and include items such as purchasing personal protective equipment, or PPE, for employees, purchasing hand sanitizers, cleaning supplies, performing deep cleaning, purchasing new technology to allow for teleworking, and providing paid leave to employees through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or the FFCRA. Luckily, Congress passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also known as the CARES Act, to provide funding to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. This funding included funding for public housing agencies to enable them to maintain normal operations and take other necessary actions during the period which the authorities are impacted by the coronavirus. HUD's total supplemental appropriation for the nationwide HCV program included $1.25 billion and $685 million for the public housing program. So what does that look like for SHRA? Overall, the agency will receive approximately $3.6 million that is divided as follows. The HCV program administration will receive a little over $1.9 million. The public housing program overall will receive $1.7 million. Broken down between the city and county housing authorities, city public housing subsidy will total approximately $1 million. The county will receive a total of $2.5 million, which includes the $667,000 of public housing subsidy, and a little over $1.9 million in the HCV administration funds. These numbers do not reflect the additional funds that have been allocated to the agency through CDBG, ESG, and HOPWA, which were brought before you previously in updated action plans, totaling $9.6 million. Additionally, the agency will receive an estimated $22 million in Emergency Solutions Grant, which is $10.2 million allocated through the city, while $11.8 million is allocated to the county. These funds will be available for utilization beyond the 2020 fiscal year, and plans are currently in the works for how this fund will be used.
Before you leave the slide, I think we have a question from Supervisor Natoli.
Yeah, thank you. I know you're going through this briefly and you're going to be back to us on the 28th, but I think just as you outlined in your verbal comments, having a sheet that would outline beyond just, buried in a large budget document, the money you mentioned from ESG, CDBG, HOPWA, how that factors in, and then I think it's an important element of obviously budgeting, but certainly from the standpoint of knowledge, and there's so many different funding streams tied to the stimulus package and to obviously the ongoing funding streams that SHRA taps into. But that would be helpful. So when you come back in a couple of weeks, a slide that we could use so that when we, one certainly for the edification of board members as we look at your budget, but also as we're talking to folks about what opportunities that presents relative to either support for housing, support for other community-based programming, for relief to those who would meet the qualifications of any particular program. That would be really useful to have that. Okay,
will do.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions before I
think you're good.
Okay. So looking specifically at the additional funding for the HCV programs, the agency is implementing the landlord incentives. Some of these incentives include the new landlord bonus, the welcome back bonus, the no loss bonus, damage claims, application fees for tenants, and security deposit assistance for tenants. Sarah O'Daniel, the Director of Housing Choice Vouchers and Homeless Initiatives, will expand on these incentives in a few minutes. Additional resources available to the agency has been made from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. On Monday, May 18th, FEMA approved the agency's request for public assistance. This approval allows the agency to prepare individual project applications to FEMA that will result in funding for the agency. The total funding that may be available is yet to be determined, but it's important to note that FEMA will only cover 75% of eligible costs, with 25% needing to be covered by other sources. Since the Public Housing Program and HCV program received their own specific funding through the CARES Act, expenses incurred in these programs are ineligible for FEMA funding. 2021 budget estimates. SHRA has completed the budget estimates for 2021. Like many other agencies, the budget process was very different than from prior periods. We are scheduled to bring a status quo or continuation budget to you for adoption and approval on July 28th, and we will implement the suggestions you've just made. The term status quo or continuation, meaning that the basis for the 2021 budget will include all of the assumptions made for the 2020 budget, plus recognizing any salary benefits or PERS increases and any FTE changes that were previously approved throughout the year. The budget will be updated throughout the year as other changes and projects are approved throughout the normal approval process of the Commission, the boards of the city and the county housing authorities. At this time, I'd like to bring Sarah O'Daniel, the Director of HCV and Homeless Innovations Programs, to further discuss the landlord incentives.
Good morning, Chair Cerna and members of the board. I'm Sarah O'Daniel with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. Nice to see you all, and I just wanted to share a few details about the new initiative that we're so excited to embark on related to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We are allocating $500,000 of these funds to launch an incentive program to attract new landlords to the voucher program and also provide assistance to our families to help them lease up units during the pandemic. This is something that HUD has encouraged housing authorities to do, to again provide incentives to our families and to our landlords. To put things in perspective, we house over 13,000 families on any given day, or that's around 32,000 residents. On any given day, we have about 700 families who have a voucher and are looking for a unit. They are looking for housing, they're looking over 120 days on average. We also know that there are very few vacancies right now. There is an eviction moratorium, and just in general, it's just very scarce to find affordable housing. So we have come up with 6 components to this initiative, again, to help the landlords as well as the families. So the front end as well as the back end as well. So just to go over the components in a little bit more detail. The first incentive is that we would like to provide $2,500 one-time bonus for a landlord who has not participated on our program in the last 12 months. This is a sign-up bonus for them. The second incentive is that we would like to provide a one-time bonus of $2,000 for any landlord who has left our program within the last 12 months, and we're welcoming them back to the program.
Can I interrupt? How much discretion does the agency have in terms of the amount of signing incentive for landlords?
We have full discretion.
Okay.
The third incentive that we want to help our new landlords is that we want what we call a no-loss bonus. We would like to provide a proration of the contract rent from the day we receive the landlord's paperwork to the date that we actually have the contract made effective. And this is a maximum for 1 month of contract rent. We also want to help our landlords, help them pay for damages that are sometimes done to the units from our tenants, pay up to $2,500, and that would cover over and above the security deposit amount, and this is for damages that are in excess of normal wear and tear.
I think Supervisor Peter has a question.
Thank you, and maybe you said this, I didn't catch it. Do you have... how much money have you set aside for this bonus?
We have set
landlord
aside
incentives?
We have set aside $500,000.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
And then on the front end, what we want to do is we know that families have a hard time coming up with the fees, the application fees that they need to pay up front for the landlords to do their checks. And we are providing $50 for each application, up to $150 for each family. So that way we can help as many families as possible get their applications through to the landlords. Also, we want to help by paying for security deposit for our families, and we will pay for a maximum of 1 month's contract rent, as many families we know do not have the funds to do so.
We have a question from Supervisor Tully.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I didn't want to interrupt your, you were on the last one, at least on the page here. I wanted to ask you just kind of about the overall approach. Obviously, we have the money that you're contemplating in the recommendation here. And I know in previous times we've talked about damage claims. I mean, in these chambers, debating certainly, approaches to helping folks get housed. Obviously, security deposit assistance has been alluded to. But we got this approach now where we call them bonuses. I guess you can call them what you like. It's all going to be about dollars, but incentives. But is this? And you do that in the header up above. I guess I'm curious. Is this modeled after something that's been successful in other communities? Is this something that, through your own outreach to landlords, your own knowledge about administering programs and some of the barriers, which are real? So I want to preface my comments too, that I recognize that a lot of landlords, have made choices either through bad experiences with, tenants previously, whether they were involved with the HCV program or Section 8, whatever you want to call it. So I guess I'm just curious, because I know you went right into, what we're proposing here today, but how did you get to this set of recommendations? Some of these aren't new items, but I guess I'm curious there. I think it's an important background for what we're considering here today.
Yes, we have looked at models around the country of agencies that have used it. As you know, some housing authorities have been doing programs like this because they are called move-to-work agencies. They have flexibility. These funds, in the past, we have not been able to do this because we're not able to do it with our current, with our administrative funds. However, due to the pandemic, HUD has allowed us to use these funds for this purpose. However, we have seen that it has worked well. It has worked well in agencies in the LA area. It has worked in San Diego, just across the country for some of those agencies that have had flexibility to do it. And so we have modeled it around those programs around the country. I do want to mention that these funds are only available until December 31st of this year. So we only have 6 months to launch, implement, and use all the money. So we don't have a lot of time. We hope HUD will give us an extension, but we don't know at this point.
Okay, so the window of opportunity is the stimulus package, CARES package, that then opened up the latitude for the agency to embark on this. And you said $500,000 for the landlord incentives. Or is it all inclusive of the welcome back and the no loss? Is that all in the $500,000, or those will have separate amounts attributed?
No,
to
it's just everything together, combined.
So is somebody eligible for two of the three? Obviously, if you're new, you're not the welcome back. If you get the welcome back, and if they want the no loss,
they can get that as well.
Okay, so what's the maximum amount? It'd be $5,000.
Well, the no loss bonus, usually we process it within a 7-day window, so the maximum is 1 month's contract rent, but we don't anticipate it's going to be a lot.
$1,200 or $1,400, whatever.
Yeah, possibly.
So the potential here is $3,500 to maybe close to $4,000 potentially, right?
I would say around $3,500.
$3,500.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just try to do the quick math, how many folks do you think you can enroll if you maximize the amount? What's your contemplated?
Well, it really depends on, which pots, because they might come back for damages or whatever, but we would like to get at least 100 landlords that we can help during this time frame, new landlords.
But didn't we already have a proposal? I didn't think we were restricted on the damage claims before. Wasn't that one of the incentives when we talked about, expanding the HCV eligibility and trying to extend that to, folks who were essentially homeless or in need of transition? Or is that something we don't offer currently?
We currently don't offer damage claims.
So, in my view, that's really essential. It's one thing to offer people money to get back into the program or to come into the program, but having that insurance or assurance, and we've talked about that again, in recent years, that kind of provides that no fault situation that obviously if the tenant doesn't perform or damages the property, knowing that they can process, a claim and get that addressed, assuming it's legitimate, quickly. That to me is really key. It's one thing to try to, entice somebody to come in, and I would think that might even be more key for folks. So what's the difference between a no loss and the damage claims itself? What's distinct?
The no loss is what's being provided to them once the paperwork comes in, and so because sometimes we hear that we don't want to wait, we want it to start right away. So while the paperwork has been,
what to start right away? What do you want?
They want the payments to start right away.
Oh.
So we are just processing the paperwork for 7 days, and we're going to pay them a prorated amount from once the paperwork comes in until we do the inspection and all of the HUD
for holding the
diligence.
unit open,
For
basically.
holding,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's different. Okay, so
And I just wanted to add something related to damages. We used to have it a long time ago. So maybe that's what you're remembering, but nothing that we've had recently. And we have seen around the country that a lot of agencies who've had discretion to do so have put this pot aside. But interestingly enough, the landlords really like having this pot, but barely any use it. So that's also very interesting. I'm not sure if they forget about it or not, but it's not utilized. We've seen this nationally.
Well, and maybe it goes to the fact that most of the renters or tenants are appreciative of the accommodations, and they honor the agreement, and you don't get the claims. But it's knowing that you got that as a backdrop going into it. It would seem to me that, and so I guess I would just, and I didn't mean to get too much into questioning here, but that if we embark on this, that maybe that's part of, to your point, having that as a backdrop and figuring out a way beyond December 31st or some extension of the CARES Act, because it would seem to me ongoing, you may not have to worry about welcoming people back if people stay in the program knowing that there's, as I said, insurance against it, and if the claim loss isn't all that great, then maybe that's something we find a way to manage and to keep in place over time, kind of back to the future type of thing, as you mentioned there, that if we had this in the past, because I think that we're going to be challenged otherwise in a tight housing market to have folks at bonus or no bonus to want to embark on it if they think there's going to be some risk out there relative to the damage to their property. So, okay, thanks.
Supervisor Frost?
I just wanted to make sure I understand then, because you said you had damage claims and no loss a long time ago.
Just the damage claims.
Just the damage claims.
Yes.
So it's the new landlord and the welcome back and the no loss that will go away in 6 months, or does all of this go away in 6 months?
They all go away.
They all go away.
They all go away. It's based on tied to the funding source.
And the funding, we won't be allowed to allocate it in that way in 6 months unless they extend it.
That is correct.
I think this is possibly going to help you actually get more landlords, because there are a lot of people who might come back if they knew there was a little bit of insurance. They've possibly lost money in the past, and so I think it's great that they're offering this at least for a time, and if it works really well, it might be a way to better compensate landlords for opening up their units. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Supervisor Tolle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just so back to that though. So if it goes away in 6 months, you set the money aside. Does that pool of money have to be used? If you set it aside for damage claims, and because otherwise you're kind of breaching what you say. Come on, here's what we're going to do.
Damages in February.
Yeah, and you want to establish a long-term, healthy relationship with good, housing that meets certainly our criteria. That's sufficient for the people who are going to be living there. But if that all goes away, I guess to my point earlier, I think that we need to find a way to maintain that, over a period of time. Otherwise, I mean, that's kind of a fleeting moment. And if I was looking at the detail behind this, even if you were giving me a positive and a sales job, but you say that goes away, I don't know. So I see Michelle's there.
Michelle, we're going to answer that.
In fact, we did have some great discussions internally about all of these different incentives, but specifically damage claims. And our commitment was that even if everything else went away, we would need to identify some other type of funding source so that we could honor that commitment. Because when people move out, that's when you need it, and people aren't going to move in and move out in 6 months. Right. And what we'd like to do, obviously, is to show the success of this to HUD so that they will see the need to allow us this level of flexibility in the future, and as additional rounds of CARES funding, which there are more funds that they have not allocated, are used in this manner, and they give us that discretion. The other thing too that Sarah kind of touched on is that they have given us more flexibility. So for inspections, we don't have to wait until someone comes out. We can do owner certification. We can follow up later with the actual inspection. So it really is opening up a lot of the opportunities to work with landlords in a much more collaborative process.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that? So is it possible that, I don't know if this is the right construct or term, but that you could have like an escrow account where you put the money, you technically satisfy the parameters of the CARES Act funding availability, you appropriate the funds to an escrow account that is, I don't know, somehow managed by the landlord or accessible by the landlord for damages outside of the time frame of the availability of the funds.
Mm-hmm. Well, we would have to check into that and see if HUD would give us the approval. Usually they don't. Usually what they say is they want to see that the money has been spent for its
it's a receipt
intended.
for the damages.
Yes. They want to see it's used for its intended purpose.
Okay.
But we have noticed that even with the initial waivers, that they are giving more time, more flexibility. So they really are trying to work with housing authorities because they understand that the need is so great for housing. And in fact, there's more of a demand. So they are really working with us.
Has there been any analysis that you've concluded that compares the totality of what this incentive looks like compared to a landlord taking a market rate tenant? In other words, can you make the argument to a landlord, hey, you're actually going to be made whole much better than if it were just a market rate condition where you're accepting someone that just wants an apartment that.
Well, I think the advantage, obviously, is that it does protect the landlord in case the tenant loses income. So if the tenant loses income, if they lose their job or face unemployment, the amount of money that we pay for the landlord will go up. So they're going to stay whole in that regard. So is that kind of addressing your question?
Well, even before we had the challenge of the pandemic, and of course we had a wholesale pretty radical change to the HCV availability and process working with the city a few years ago. Not too long after that, we continue to hear that the program continues to struggle in light of a tight housing market, especially. I'm just wondering if this is additive. So this is now a new way to incent landlords to participate. But if their hesitation to participate in the past or the reluctance to renew for those that have participated in the past is the fact that their calculus is, well, I don't want to deal with the headache of this. I just want to go to a market rate tenant. I guess what I'm asking is, do we have some analysis that shows that this is going to be a really solid argument that is going to, bear the kind of fruit that we want, which is more landlords participating and fewer dropping from the program?
Well, I think that's exactly what Sarah was talking about, where housing authorities who've had this flexibility have seen that type of increase in terms of landlords who are participating. And we have already seen, even initially, where more and more landlords, even before we offered the landlord incentives, have started to reach out to the housing authority. So we are starting to see that, and we hope that this will continue that momentum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This pretty much concludes the presentation, and if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
We may have exhausted them all here.
Quick one.
Sure, Supervisor Peters.
Is the 500,000 just for the county or city and county combined?
City, county, all the cities. Because remember, the HCB program encompasses unincorporated and incorporated cities.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a receive and file. I appreciate the information. We all do.
See you in 2 weeks.
All right.
We did not receive any public comments
Thank
to
you.
make verbal comments.
Next item, please.
Yes. We have Senator Pan in our audience. We have 11 o'clock. Can we take his item first, then come back?
That's a good suggestion. Thank you. Be respectful of the senator's time.
Just call the item.
Yes, so item 50 is the informational update on Senate Bill 1029, authored by Senator Richard Pan, relating to the geographic managed care in Sacramento County.
Hello, Supervisors.
Good morning.
I'm here to present on Senate Bill 1029.
A little louder, Peter.
Senate Bill 1029, which is from Senator Pan about our geographic managed care program. As many of you are well aware, since 1994, we have been one of 2 geographic managed care programs in terms of dealing with Medi-Cal in the state of California, San Diego being the other one, and having significantly more ability to hold accountable the managed care organizations. This covers 427,000 of our fellow residents in Sacramento County. And what 1029 does effectively is provide a GMC fix, if you will, in terms of allowing us to hold to decide which managed care organizations are going to be able to apply to be members of the GMC, and to give us the ability to hold them much more accountable for metrics of patient satisfaction and quality of care. And because the state has pretty much actually has kind of abrogated their responsibilities, and we haven't done much ourselves. I think it's not surprising that 4 out of the 5 managed care organizations that we have in Sacramento County rank in the bottom quartile of the state in terms of satisfaction and quality of care, Kaiser being the only one that is not the case. So we've been working for the last year, Senator Pan back there, and myself and Chet Hewitt, and a whole range of stakeholders, with about 100 or so stakeholders, from medical societies to public health folks to advocates to medical students and to FQHCs and to managed care organizations, all of them involved in this discussion. And so we've come up with this bill, which actually is passed on consent. I'll let the senator handle that in the Senate, and is going to the Assembly's consent file shortly. And so we hope to have this bill signed into law by August or so. So anyway, I'd be happy to take questions, or I can call up Senator Pan, and you'll realize that we dress alike because we both went to Hopkins. It's the
All right, any questions for Peter before the senator comes to the podium?
Real quickly. Just a quick one for Peter. And I know Senator Pan can speak to the legislation, but this would authorize the establishment of a health authority.
Authority, yes.
And what is that? Is that another offshoot of this board? Is it a made up of folks like yours?
So it's a predominantly board-appointed we have a commission now, the Medi-Cal Commission,
Advisory
which does,
committee, yeah.
no offense to anybody, but effectively nothing. So this actually gives an authority the power to do those two things, to have oversight over the managed care organizations that will be able to be applying, to be part of the GMC, and to be able to hold accountable the MCOs for patient satisfaction and patient quality.
Okay. And this board, though, would be the appointing authority for that?
For almost all of it.
Okay.
There's a few of the 18-member committee authority members that be appointed by like the advisory board, the advisory committee for the FQHCs.
Okay, good. Thanks, Peter.
Great, thank you, Peter.
Okay. Senator Richard Pan, 6th District.
Thank you, Dr. Bielenson. And again, I want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to talk about SB 1029. And again, appreciate your support, and also want to be sure we answer any questions you may have about this particular bill and what we're trying to do with basically trying to reform our GMC program here in Sacramento. SB 1029, as mentioned, establishes a local health authority, gives you the power through a county ordinance to establish this health authority to see and designate which plans can compete for the state contract, and will provide ongoing oversight and input. And in fact, so that right now, what we have in the situation here in Sacramento County is that the plans basically contract with the state, and if they can meet the requirements. So right now, I think we have how many plans right now? We have 5 plans in Sacramento County. And let me just give you an example, because I'm also a physician. I'm a pediatrician. I take care of Medi-Cal patients. I had an issue with Medi-Cal. Fortunately, in my position, I had the opportunity to call the DHCS director and call directly and say, by the way, who in the Department of Healthcare Services is responsible for overseeing Medi-Cal in Sacramento to be sure that we're getting good outcomes in Sacramento? And her answer to me was, I guess it's me, because there's no one who's responsible for that. And I think that's a problem, right? I mean, we should have control over our own healthcare fate. Medi-Cal covers 1/3 of all the people in Sacramento. So it's a pretty big player when it comes to payment. And also, when you think about this COVID situation right now, we really, you have public health here at the county. You want to be sure one of your biggest payers, which is a government-funded payment system, is coordinating with the public health efforts, with the other health efforts that we're doing here in Sacramento County. So I really say this bill is really about being sure that the county, the people of the county has a say in the Medi-Cal program. In fact, we're somewhat unique in the state in the lack of input we have in our own Medi-Cal program. Most other counties have much more. Even San Diego, which is the one other GMC county, has much more. So this legislation provides the foundation for this health authority to enact other reforms that stakeholders discussed as well. So it gives us also different options if we want to explore. So we currently have a GMC. If we want to do a 2-plan model or some other model, we can explore that. It gives that latitude. That final decision will be decided by the county and the authority. We're working with stakeholders. As Dr. Bielan said, we brought a stakeholder process. We've been working for over a year on this issue to be sure we bring alignment with different stakeholders, and we're continuing to work with them to refine the bill and the representation of the health authority. Also, the window of time that we also aligned is that SB 1029 coincides with the state reprocurement of the Medi-Cal managed care plan. So we're actually aligning with reforms going on at the state. So it's a good time to actually do this. And in fact, we anticipate the RFPs, which will be released mid-late next year with 2024 implementation new contracts. So all our GMC plans are through the state procurement. So Sacramento, like other counties, is engaging with Department of Healthcare Services to seek changes in the RFP process. We're not the only county, but I think this is a prime opportunity. And again, we've been working with the Department of Healthcare Services because obviously we need their support as well. They've been receptive and cooperative, and they're actually providing significant technical assistance. So I think this is an opportunity for us to, again, improve our Medi-Cal program here in Sacramento County, be sure we have much more local input into our own healthcare system as well, and again, would appreciate your support, and also want to be sure we answer any questions you may have about this legislation or about the work that we're doing in this regard. Thank you.
Dr. Pan, Senator Pan, thank you for being here and for your patience, certainly, to get to the podium here. I guess the one question I have is, and you and I have been talking about this especially for years now.
Right.
So I'm very pleased to see that it's now come to a point where we have a specific piece of legislation to seek the change. Who is opposed to this and why at this point?
I am not aware of any formal opposition to this bill. We are working with stakeholders or people who want adjustments. For example, the composition of the health authority. We're making some refinements based on some feedback we're getting from people. So there's some ongoing dialogue around that. But again, we've been working as a coalition for over a year. And again, I want to thank Dr. Bielenson for his leadership in helping make that happen, as well as Chet Hewitt at Sierra Health Foundation and many others as well. So we don't have any formal opposition. We're clearly continuing to dialogue with stakeholders to ensure that we have broad-based support.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions for Senator Pan?
No. Thanks, Richard.
No. Again, thank you for being here.
Of course. No, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So do we need any action on this? We've supported the bill.
No, it's just an update, just to have an opportunity to hear from Dr. Pan about what this bill means.
But this is something we've been wanting to tee up for some time, though, so that the board did have the opportunity to hear directly from the senator.
And for those that are watching, though, we are in support of the bill. Our committee's gone on record. I want to be clear about that. So, I mean, we alluded to that. So, yep, good. I see Natasha's here too. So, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, item 49, approve the amended Sacramento COVID-19 homelessness response plan to extend operations of approximately 600 isolation quarantine units and implement a rehousing strategy for sheltered persons utilizing $2,150,000 in county coronavirus relief funding, and provide authority to accept $2,150,000 in funding from the City of Sacramento for use in the flexible housing pool.
Good morning. I do have a PowerPoint. Cindy Kavanaugh, Director of Homeless Initiatives. I'm here today with Ann Edwards, Director of Human Assistance, and Dr. Bielenson, Director of Health Services. And I'm happy to be here to share our efforts to date, respective of the COVID-19 Homeless Response Plan implementation, and looking towards the next phase where we will focus on rehousing folks and stabilizing folks in permanent housing, as well as in a strategy related to developing new permanent supportive housing, and I'll provide more details on that in the presentation. I did want to recognize and thank a very cross-agency collaborative team that has been implementing to date, and that includes folks from the two departments I mentioned, from the City of Sacramento, from Sacramento Steps Forward, and from the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. It has been a really extraordinary focused effort that will share some of the outcomes. City Council is voting on this same amended plan on July 28th, and the Continuum of Care Board heard it last week. As you recall, on April 7th, the Board of Supervisors, as well as Sacramento City Council and the Continuum of Care Board, approved a collaborative plan with joint investments of over $15 million to respond to the unknown needs of the homeless population around COVID-19. And efforts under the plan had two main objectives. One was to slow the spread of COVID-19, and two was to mitigate the impacts for persons experiencing homelessness. As I mentioned, implementation has been shared amongst these agencies. Our work to date has focused on three main areas: supporting the existing shelters, about 400 beds in congregate settings, creating new isolation and quarantine sheltering opportunities, and addressing the needs of people living unsheltered in encampments, consistent with guidance from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As of July 6th, the plan has resulted in the operation of 563 preventative quarantine units, primarily in leased motels, serving 800 households and over 900 individuals. Just want to note that this is in addition to some other motel sheltering going on through the Veterans Administration, as well as through DHA's existing motel program. And although my numbers are only through May, that has put over 200 people into motels. It also includes the operation of 18 trailers for medically supported isolated units, and we have served 29 households, 33 people, for those who have either tested positive or have pending tests. It has also included deployments of sanitation, food, and other services to encampments throughout the county. And finally, in addition, the Department of Health Services has arranged testing of nearly 800 people experiencing homelessness in shelters, in encampments, at day centers such as Loaves and Fishes, and in the quarantine units. Thus far, through this program, only 3 individuals have tested positive through this testing. I want to note that we have been sharing weekly pretty detailed implementation updates. Those are located on Sacramento County Responding to Homelessness website, as well as Sacramento Steps Forward. We also are sharing monthly demographic information we have on the participants. Because Sacramento did not experience outbreaks of COVID-19 in congregate shelters as other communities did, we were able to use this increased capacity in the preventative quarantine units to bring inside some of the most vulnerable among the homeless population. Over 1/4 of those served to date did not have records of participation in services in the Homeless Management Information System, but are still presenting the vulnerability of that's detailed in this slide. 63% have been homeless for over a year, 55% were age 55 or older, and 76% came from unsheltered situations. Half of those that had completed an assessment for housing through the continuum of care, it's called Levy, indicated a likely need for permanent supportive housing, which means ongoing assistance with services and rent. And as you will see, this has implications for our next phase that brings case management services and rehousing assistance to these households. So the recommended plan before you would pivot the remaining funds originally intended for additional motels and add funding to do the following. We would extend the isolation quarantine in the existing locations through September, holding 18 trailers available for COVID positive or pending, and that number can be adjusted. We would continue the encampment support through September. That means water, food distribution, outreach services, and sanitation. And we would create housing opportunities, rehousing opportunities for up to 500 households residing in the motels and trailers. And in addition, pursue development of new permanent supportive housing and funding. It's important to note, as with the original plan, we view this plan as subject to change. We're reacting to the trends of the pandemic as well as funding opportunities. We do anticipate additional plan changes, potentially extending even longer for some of the locations. We are looking at ways to augment the current funded in this amendment so that we can help in stabilization and permanent housing for up to 18 months. And we're looking at both the CARES Emergency Solutions Grant funding that was mentioned earlier, as well as additional state allocations of funding. So strategy 1 is underway. Because we were able to do some of this without this additional funding. And it begins with in-reach, if you will, to engage, assess, problem solve, and connect folks to services. We have on-site staff from the provider, as well as from medical staff. So we have some ability to engage folks residing in the units. But in this strategy, we hope to match 250 participants to existing rehousing programs. That is, programs that offer that they are entitled to, perhaps because they're a veteran, or perhaps because they're a family, or other qualifications. They can. We're going to connect them to these rehousing programs that actually help secure units, pay rent, offer services for some period of time. Secondly, this strategy would increase that capacity by expanding the county's flexible housing pool. This also includes ongoing rental assistance, supportive services, and we also will be offering problem solving so that if we can help folks with a little bit of assistance, we will. If they need more ongoing assistance, we'll be able to offer that. Just want to note, the flexible housing pool does have two kinds of services: the intensive case management services, as well as the property-related tenant services. Somewhat relevant to the conversation on landlord incentives, one of the things we have found through the PRTS services is knowing that there is some place to call if there are issues has been a real selling point to getting landlords involved in renting to these persons.
Excuse me, Cindy.
Yes.
Supervisor Tolley has a question.
Yes, Cindy. So just in the point I was going to ask about, so what sort of coordination or dovetailing is there with what we just heard from SHRA relative to getting some available units and landlords who would rent with all the things that come with the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and then obviously what you're proposing to do here and have, to expand upon. So I guess I'm curious, how does that all fit?
Certainly folks that participate in these rehousing programs may qualify for Housing Choice Vouchers, which can offer them an ongoing assistance, which they need. That's the, maybe more permanent assistance with rent, if not services. So certainly there is a connection between Housing Choice Voucher and making sure that program functions well with this program. Although we will be likely securing the units outside of those incentives. And secondly, there are incentives to landlords throughout programs, amongst programs, especially serving homeless. The Continuum of Care has that, the Flexible Housing Pool, as well as the Flexible Supportive Rehousing Program. There are different incentives, and I think getting consistency so we're not competing against each other is something we strive for. So coordinating as to, although that is a limited term program, we really don't want to compete with each other for units for the same or similar population.
To that point, and maybe you've seen a correspondence, maybe you haven't, but I know SAC wrote to all of us a letter that went into quite a bit of detail about, some aspects was being presented here. But one of the things that I extracted from their communication is that concern that the folks that are currently being assisted under this whole program element somehow jump ahead of others who are in waiting for, who may not be either in higher risk categories or may not be housed in the trailers or motels, but are somewhere else in the system awaiting, permanent supportive housing. So can you touch on that? Because again,
Sure.
I think it's a legitimate question to be raised and should be answered.
Sure. We do have an opportunity, I think, that is unique here, where folks that have been outside, as I mentioned, not engaged in services, who are now beginning to stabilize, to engage them in housing services. That doesn't mean other housing services do not continue or that they jump ahead, although they are a highly vulnerable population that do qualify for services that they have not been engaging with. A perfect example is services offered through the Veterans Administration. I can't recall the number, but we have a fair number of veterans who had not engaged. We've connected with the VA. They are working with those clients. They're entitled to those services. We would like them to be able to, access rehousing services. So we aren't proposing, except for this focused flexible housing pool, which is additional funding related to COVID. We're looking for better connectivity to what exists and not really jumping ahead. Again, dedicating a small part or some part of the expansion to these participants. The last point on this slide is that we are looking at room and board placements, and the city has developed a program through the Pathways program where they procure room and boards, and we think about 25 households that would be the right solution for them. The next strategy is to develop new permanent supportive housing that would involve either the acquisition of motels or other real estate broadly for persons experiencing homelessness, including persons in the isolation quarantine units. As you know, this approach usually takes months to years, but there is a new state program with state coronavirus relief funding. We just had a conversation today that is proposing acquisition by the end of the year. And so we have been working with SHRA and the city and the response team on what this would look like to use the state home key funds or other funds. It is a big challenge, as the other is a big challenge, and I'll get into that in a minute, because it would involve a quick acquisition, probably use an interim use for individuals, and then working on the longer term affordable housing finance to really stabilize the development. So it's a very different model.
Excuse me, Supervisor Peters has a question.
Thank you. I have a question about this acquisition of, I have a number of questions, but right now, acquiring motels and real estate. It looks like this $2.15 million in county corona relief fund, and human assistance, another. So maybe $4.5 million roughly. That won't buy one motel.
And that's for strategy 1. So that recommendation is just for the rehousing assistance through the flexible housing pool, because we can do that in the short term for the folks residing in the motels. Additional funding would be sought, again, through this state project home key or other opportunities to acquire property. Right now, home key could pay up to 100% of the acquisition. It's again, they're just releasing how that program will work with legislation just passed. So we're looking towards that funding, possibly augmented with other local affordable housing funding for strategy 2 acquisition.
Is part of working through strategy 2 to determine, in addition to what other sources of funding there might be, is what about the funding to run a program there?
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
We do have a letter from some people who live in the city of Sacramento about one of the projects. Right. So it sounds completely unacceptable in my mind.
So that letter is relevant to the motels as for the COVID response. What I'm talking about here would be permanent supportive housing. Likely not in those existing motels, possibly not in a motel, but in a different sort of acquisition project.
So,
I just want to say one more thing.
Acquire motels, that's the first 2 words.
Or other real estate, yes.
So I think a couple of things on this that confuses us. Strategy 1 is what we're looking for additional funding that Cindy described, and that's where the existing motels are.
But it's on strategy 2, Nav.
I'm getting strategy 2 is that to acquire motels, we're not asking the board, there's no funding here that we're asking the board to do it. We're kind of giving you a preview of what next stage we're going to get into. Right. So that's our next stage that we're putting here, is that we'll be coming back to the board saying this is what the strategy looks like. The other point that I don't want to get too into jurisdictions, but what we will be asking the board to do will be for, if you're acquiring hotels, motels, real estate in the unincorporated, we'll come to this governing body. If we end up doing some kind of solution that includes City of Sacramento, Rancho Cordova, somebody else, that's a discussion with them for them to make that call.
So each jurisdiction will have to approve the locations if we get to that.
That's
I appreciate the question, because to Supervisor Peters' point, and she referenced it earlier, the Sure Stay Hotel, which is in the district I represent, but it's in the city of Sacramento, trying to contain the impacts from Project Room Key there has been very, very challenging. Right. And so if that were to be a site that would evolve into, into any kind of permanent supportive housing, I know it's not. I know Ann's coming to tell me it's not. But the point here is that if it were to be considered, it wouldn't be considered by this board. It wouldn't be a decision for this board. It would be a decision made by the City Council of the City of Sacramento.
Correct.
Okay. Right. Just got to make that crystal clear for those that might be watching in the neighborhood around the Sure Stay, because they've had some very valid concerns.
And just to expand it, just not that project, anything else within the City of Sacramento.
Right.
it will be working with City of Sacramento and with their administration and their elected officials to do that.
Understood.
Well, can I ask about that particular project? Are there management staff on site?
Yes. Still
Do you consider what they're doing a good job? I mean,
actually, I think they're doing a fantastic job. And I know there are some issues and some perceived issues out there that we have done a lot to mitigate them. So we have instituted a contract with the Sacramento Police Department for additional patrols in the neighborhood. That started several weeks ago.
But it took longer than I wanted to see happen to get them to even initialize that.
It did take a long time.
We can't spread that kind of thing throughout the county, that kind of behavior.
No, and we recognize in hindsight that the selection of that motel was probably not wise because of its proximity to a neighborhood. Yeah. We would never do that again near a residential neighborhood. And yet, when you visit the location, the staff out there are doing this whole project room key, including the shore stay. The staff out there are doing an excellent job of managing the program, and there have been very few on-site issues. There are certainly some neighborhood issues that some are a result of the project room key residents, some are a result of homeless that traverse between Highway 160 and Del Paso Boulevard naturally because it's a shortcut to businesses, which is why we instituted the SPD.
Well, I mean, keep in mind the redevelopment agency has told us that when you have a facility like this, it does attract other people who don't necessarily live there. And
correct.
That's why, I mean, I like the motel model, as you know, because we did that one in North Highlands, but it's in a commercial area. It's not anywhere near, and it's all fenced and all the appropriate things, but we just cannot put these kinds of things in residential areas, and with not only the people who are living there, but the people who are attracted to the people who are living there.
Totally agree. And as I said a moment ago, we realize in hindsight that it was not a good choice. We will not do it again. Also, we're in the process of instituting, we have a contract and we're doing some additional camera monitoring with a camera monitoring service out there to help monitor the site and immediate surroundings. And also, when Cindy talked about moving in towards rehousing, we're going to target the sure stay first for moving folks out. And if there were any extension of motels, as Cindy mentioned, we will not extend the sure stay past September 30th. We are very much committed to ending that program at that site, and we have no intention of advocating for that to be a motel acquisition site either.
Okay. And then can I ask a question? I'm not sure who, as long as we're paused here. There's a paragraph in the background that says, serves 615 people since early April. We've had 420 motel rooms, 59 trailers, but yet I thought the money was for people who tested positive, and we've only had 2 homeless individuals test positive. Did the contract allow, the source of the money, did it allow us to divert it to?
Yes, there was intention to serve at-risk population. So we always knew the motels would be serving primarily at-risk and not necessarily intended for those positive. The trailers at Cal Expo were the ones that were really intended as the medical quarantine units for those who tested positive or were awaiting test results. But we actually test folks upon entry into the motel, and if they test positive, we move them to the trailers. The good news is there's been very, very few positive tests.
2.
Yes.
Those trailers,
there was more than that overall.
Sat empty, I think.
Yeah. If I may, Supervisor, just to add to Ann's comments, to your question, the purpose of the plan was not just to focus on those who tested positive, it was to prevent the virus from being spread throughout the homeless population. We wanted to get ahead of that. And one of the real success stories here is that we did just that. The plan was effective, and as a result of that effectiveness and the fact that so few people have tested positive, we could repurpose those trailers to house more people who had not tested positive, right? And you recall when we set this up that there was criticism that we weren't getting out ahead of the virus and that we were taking too long to develop this plan, and that as a result you were going to see this mass outbreak. We didn't see that. The plan's been very successful in avoiding that.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. My memory is that these rooms, motel rooms, et cetera, were to be for people who had the virus, and
It was
that
intended
surprised
for,
me.
The funding source indicated that we were to isolate at-risk homeless individuals so that it was not spread.
Okay.
I know
that would have been helpful to have in here.
I know that Supervisor Natoli's teed up here to ask a question or issue a comment, but before we leave the sure stay issue, I appreciate Ann recognizing now in hindsight that we wouldn't do it again. But I think there's probably a whole array of lessons learned from the sure stay experience. One of which is, I can't emphasize enough, it really has to be at the forefront of any strategy moving forward, that it's clearly communicated, whether it's in a residential neighborhood or industrial neighborhood, the surrounding property owners, the surrounding community needs to clearly understand who's in charge of what, whose decisions affect what. They need to understand, for instance, it's the city that decides the location. It's the county that is assisting with the programmatic elements. And I think looking back on not just the sure stay, but there's another hotel that was used for this program in the district I represent, in the River District, that it just needs to be made very clear who's doing what, so that if there are concerns expressed by the surrounding community, they are directed at the appropriate parties. Part of what you've been tasked to do, and it's consuming a lot of time and energy, is just directing who concerned residents need to address their concerns to, or who needs to address which concerns. So I hope that that's going to be something that moving forward is just, it's the first thing that we pay attention to, is the first thing we do in terms of a comm strategy with the surrounding neighborhoods.
I had one more question.
Yes.
Please. Thank you. I wanted to ask about when you're acquiring motels or other real estate, that this is a willing seller issue. We're not talking about
eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
Absolutely.
Okay. On the record.
So I have, I believe, one or two more slides just to recap on this one as projects are identified. Yes.
Supervisor Tolley.
Yeah, and this is just piggybacking off of Nav and Ann's comments. I want to just, again, back to the point about clarity and crystal clarity. So if I understand it, that the decision to, whether it was with the Best Western Sure Stay or any other site, that was the jurisdiction had to designate that, or, okay, I want to be clear. We made it, because I know there was a Rancho Cordova location, and we did outreach, but we made the decision. I want to understand who made the decision.
So we had to move very quickly to bring this program up. And no, the jurisdictions did not make the decisions about the motels. They were notified, but the team, and primarily DHA, I'll take responsibility for that. We made this decision based on criteria that we had on what would make a successful program. Let's set aside the sure stay for a moment, because being in a residential neighborhood, we know does not make it successful. But it met all the other criteria by having exterior facing rooms so that we didn't have to spend time cleaning hallways and monitoring hallways so that social distancing could occur. So there were just a lot of things like that. We wanted large facilities so that it would be efficient, having some economies of scale by having a large number of rooms in one location. So all those criteria were outlined. We got lists of motels from the governor's office. We had motels reaching out to us. We had a team that went out and visited various motels for this list of criteria that we had, and then decisions were made by the team and me about which motels to use, and then we reached out to the jurisdictions if it was not in an unincorporated area.
Supervisor Natoli, one more point in there is that the team that we're talking about, primarily we had City of Sacramento folks, Sacramento Step Forward, and the county.
Yes.
So the example that happened in City of Sacramento was that they were all very much involved in it. In the other cities, as a list came in, it wasn't that they were in and on the team.
Right.
And did reach out. As we move into next stage about acquiring and going into the plan we're going to bring back to you, it's fully anticipated, to Supervisor Serna and Supervisor Peters' point, that anything we do at that point, a version of a good neighbor policy, we'll be looking at that. That can get cumbersome. But the point that I want to make sure that is that we do not want to bring an incorporated cities motel to this board to make a determination for that. It can meet our criteria, but at the end, if we're going to acquire the motels and start running programs, we need to have partnership with that administration and that elected officials to make sure that we're all on the same page as we go forward,
well,
residential or non-residential.
And that's the point I was going to get to next. I appreciate Ann's response on decisions that were made as related to this, initial aspect, which we scrambled very quickly, and certainly, a good deal of good relative to a vulnerable population. Obviously, impacts that we've been recited in communications we receive relative to whether it's Wood Lake neighborhood or any place else. But I think, again, to emphasize your point, that any decision about permanency as relates to acquisition of units is not going to be DHA's decision. It would have to meet certain criteria as it relates to that. It's going to be the jurisdiction, and whether that's the city of Sacramento or city of Rancho Cordova, Elk Grove, anybody else, or unincorporated county, it's going to be require that body to ultimately approve that particular acquisition and any programmatic elements that go with it. Obviously, we would be in a position of providing a lot of those services, as that's what we do. But
correct. Programmatic could be through us, could be through another party, but all those discussions, we anticipate coming back for unincorporated to this board saying we got sites A, B, and C. Okay. This is what we plan on doing.
Okay. One other clarification, because I heard Ann say that as of end of September 30th, that as it relates to this particular location, though, that we would be exiting there, but you wouldn't be enrolling folks because you may not have permanent place for everybody there. So what's the plan behind that? Again, obviously Supervisor Stern is on point on this, but I want to be clear because some of the folks obviously, may run into us as well. And I want to be, what's the understanding about winding down at that location?
So that's a little bit of a fluid process because we are at capacity in the 4 motels that we have currently leased. Right. So if, for example, someone had some possibility for permanent housing coming and they were in the high-risk category and met criteria, we might move them into the sure stay for a short period of time. But we're going to be out of the sure stay by September 30th.
Oh, we will be entirely?
Entirely.
Okay, that's why I wanted to be sure.
You're going to be out of there entirely by September 30th.
Okay. Thanks, Ann.
And I also just want to add that I've made commitments to all the jurisdictions and neighborhoods where all the motels are, that when we move forward in the acquisition of a motel, that we would have those neighborhood processes that we normally do. This was a short-term emergency solution, and that's why that didn't happen.
Okay. Supervisor Peters?
A quick question, and I heard there would be, when a motel or a property might be located in a jurisdiction that goes to that jurisdiction. You didn't mention what happens in the unincorporated area. Does it come before this board?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Supervisor Frost?
So I just wanted to make sure I understood on the purchase of the motels, what we're really looking at then is purchasing the motel and then identifying a developer that can come in and purchase and manage it over time. So it's not a debt service that we or the cities will carry over time. It's more of a, we get it, and then we, with the funding that we identify, we're able to discount or, help that developer pencil that project.
Yeah, that's
Is that
roughly
correct?
how. That's correct. That's roughly how it will work. It could be purchased initially by that developer, not by the jurisdiction. So it may happen right off the bat, just as typical with affordable housing purchased by the developer.
But we're not going to be in the hotel business. I mean, we're
correct. And it will be for permanent supportive housing. So while we spent a lot of time on some of the challenges, I did want to go over really relative to this major effort to rehouse 500 folks, up to 500, into existing housing, which is strategy 1, not 2. It's unprecedented. It stretches administrative, provider, and housing capacity. It braids complicated funding. And delivering rehousing, including the move-in and the furniture and services during COVID, also has practical challenges. It also asks for extraordinary efforts for the persons residing in the motels or trailers. But this community has strengths that we bring, And we've been working across agencies intensively to carry out what we have so far, which has been largely successful. We have existing housing programs that we can work with and expand and build on. We have experienced providers who have been and will continue to rehouse some of the hardest households in programs like Pathways, a flexible supportive rehousing program, behavioral health programs. And we have a community that cares and contributes and supports in significant ways. So this slide outlines some of this large challenge we gave to ourselves and we'll be reporting out on. I want to say that it aligns with national and state direction that recognizes that permanent housing, given this unknown pandemic, is the long-term best safe place for people to be. And I also want to note that Sacramento is one of 8 communities in California that is receiving technical assistance from HUD's National COVID-19 Response Team in the form of a dedicated expert helping us to form this aggressive, collaborative, and inclusive strategy to rehouse as many people as we can in a short amount of time. With that, bring you to the recommendations, which are to approve the amended COVID plan, utilize the 2.15 in the county CRF for the flexible housing pool, accept the pending 2.15 from the city, and amend existing contracts in the flexible housing pool, while at the same time pursuing strategy 2, and of course returning to this body as is necessary with specific projects. With that, my presentation is concluded.
Before Cindy does that, the last bullet is what I was getting at earlier. Whatever strategy we come under option 2, it will come back to this board to get a policy direction, and then we'll start implementing. If we find motels, hotels, other properties, we'll come back to you and have that discussion with you too.
Okay, great, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone sign up to speak?
We do. We have 5 public comments.
Okay.
Are we ready? Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your public comment. If you have the meeting running in the background, please silence those devices. Go ahead and make your comments.
Development Agency. We sent a letter to the board on July 13th. We are encouraging the county to work in collaboration with the city of Sacramento, as it would be ideal if the programs are aligned as much as possible. We funded a mini grant program in the wake of the pandemic, and actually were able to raise about $100,000 and distribute that to the community. And we also did a follow-on listening campaign with the individuals who had received mini grants of up to $500. They included restaurant workers, hotel housekeepers, hairdressers, people like that in the service sector. And we asked them what were their issues before the pandemic and during the pandemic, and they were all deeply concerned about housing. Many had filed for relief under the eviction moratorium, but they were deeply concerned about what they would do when that ended. None of them reported having savings. We are anticipating that this population will fall into homelessness if the county does not provide some form of relief. So we ask our county to be proactive and innovative in its use of funds to help these challenged families. So we would again like our county to provide short-term rental relief to eligible families and an outreach program to explain the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, caller. You have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name. If you have the meeting running in the background, please silence those devices, and you can go ahead and start making your comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to say that I support all funding to address the homeless crisis as long as it's comprehensive and long-term. I think a lot of stuff you propose is short-term and really not comprehensive. You know, it's not just like a homeless issue, it's a drug issue, which is actually a mental health issue, so we need to provide mental health services. The Sure Stay Hotel without the mental health services is like asking for failure. You know, you talk about what your constituents want, but I don't hear you talking about what residents want. And, excuse me, the homeless one. And they're actually residents that are constituents as well, so I'd like you to uplift their voices. And I would like for you to allocate all the funds that you have for the jail and to a mental health facility. This will decrease a lot of the problems that we have. And also, I need you to know that there's an echo coming from your source and it's very distracting. So I don't know what to do with the mic. That's better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you are listening to the meeting in the background, please mute those devices. And also, if you have your speakerphone on, please talk directly into your phone and turn your speakerphone off. And please go ahead and start with your comments.
Hi there. My name is Stuart Gow. I'm a resident of Woodlake, and I'm calling to speak about the Sure Stay Hotel. It's great to hear you guys discussing the problem that we've been experiencing. You've already covered many of my concerns, and I hope that the city is going to pay attention to this discussion because they may plan to move forward with using Sure Stay. As you wind down Sure Stay in September, I'm hoping that in the meantime you can address security concerns that are ongoing in the neighborhood. Just last week, well, we've had several nuisance fires. Just last week there was one right in front of the motel, which was very close to catching fire to a house. What I would like to see is an actual security presence 24/7 on the gate of the motel, because that's non-existent at the moment. Patrols around the hotel would also be really helpful. I think it's fair also to ask that between now and September, if the motel is to accommodate COVID positive guests and to be treating COVID positive patients, then the neighborhood should be informed of that presence, because we do interact with the guests in public. We interact with them in the street, in the park. We've had people in our backyards, in our front yards. In the meantime, also a contribution to our private security services would be very helpful, because we're making many calls to SIA security. Also, enforcement of no camping around Sure Stay in the meantime, around Sure Stay and throughout the neighborhood in the meantime would be very helpful. Perhaps the city's impact team and the SPD could move these encampments. These are new encampments. They're not encampments that have been there for a long time. They're really a result of the presence of Sure Stay. With the risk of COVID, I really think there should be great restrictions on the movement of guests, especially anyone who's suspected of having COVID or is COVID positive. I understand it's very difficult to contain the guests within the hotel. But should people be COVID positive, I really don't think they should be in our park or using the light rail.
Sir, can you please wrap up your comments?
Certainly. Well, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope the city is also listening to these concerns. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to make your comment. If you're listening to the meeting on another device, please silence that. And also, please speak directly into the phone and try to not use your speaker phone option. And go ahead and start with your comments.
Sure. My name is Nikki Jones, and I've been a street outreach worker here in Sacramento since 2014, and longer than that, really trying to work on some of the things the previous caller said, which is mainly uplifting the voices of folks who are experiencing homelessness. I think continuously with policy and these plans to mitigate the harm of homelessness and to end homelessness, as people like to say, are so often plans that really speak to the needs of people who are housed in the community, of business owners of the community, of police in the community, instead of really listening to, number one, who's the most impacted and who has the best solutions. If they're going through it, then they are the ones who have answers. If we were to add our resources to their resiliency, we would go a long way in making real community solutions. People survive every day. They make ways, and just as stated, we would do well to make those ways wider, to add our resources to theirs. When we build out these millions of dollar programs, when we do it without their voice at the table, we do the whole community a disservice, because these programs will not succeed if they are not driven by the very real needs and perspectives of people who are experiencing housing insecurity and a lack of housing, and also the trauma that comes with being on the street, the trauma that comes with constant criminalization, which even under COVID and the public health order, y'all's sheriffs, y'all's park rangers are still out here harassing, moving along, stealing and destroying the property of people who live outside. And how is anybody supposed to get stable when that is a regular part of their lives? And that's on y'all. That's on y'all. That's a policy priority that y'all have made, and y'all can instruct these sheriffs to get off the backs of our people who are already suffering and struggling to survive. And that's your responsibility. And when y'all fund these pathways, you want to make these HOT team officers, homeless outreach team officers, the pathway, the service provider. And I can say that these people are compounding trauma in the community, and that's on you too. When you defunded all the outreach workers and you funded these cops, that's on you. And we need something entirely different. We need real community-based, peer-driven, life-affirming, supportive services for these people that understand that they deserve dignity. And honestly, housing is a human right. So when we're talking about solutions and y'all are engaging in market-based solutions to a social problem.
Nikki, can you wrap up your comments, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Market-based solutions are never going to solve the problem that the market is causing. You cannot invest your way out of this without looking at real solutions like the community land trust and socially owned housing, and getting these cops off our streets.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Phil. Bye.
We have a few more. Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to make your comment. If you're listening to this meeting in the background, could you please silence those devices and also speak directly into your phone rather than using your speakerphone? And go ahead and start with your comments.
Good morning, Chair Cerna and Supervisors. For the record, my name is Mike Jaskey, speaking on behalf of the Homeless and Housing Committee of Sacramento Area Congregations Together. As Supervisor Natoli noted, we sent you a letter, a detailed letter yesterday concerning Agenda Item 49. I'll try to summarize a few key points. SAC supports the main idea of the proposed amendment of the homeless response plan. It's going in the right direction. We just want it to do more. We're concerned that the goal as proposed, namely to rehouse 500 people, isn't rehousing everyone who's currently present in the program. We suggest increasing the budget somewhat to have as a goal to rehouse all the current trailer motel residents. The board letter and Cindy Kavanaugh's presentation today describes the difficulty of rehousing as many as 500, let alone a few more, as very difficult. I think part of the difficulty is the self-imposed deadline of September 30th. We don't know why this has to be a crash effort. Extend the time frame of this program a little bit more, another couple of months maybe, and reduce the pressure on staff and maybe actually achieve better results. This has been described as a collective effort involving more than just the county staff. Spend a little bit more of the CARES money on the non-government entities that are carrying a big load here, like Sacramento Steps Forward, others. This proposal also totally neglects the major outreach to encampments that was a new activity funded in the original plan. I think I saw in Cindy's presentation today a discussion of some continuation of that. I didn't see reference to that in the written document. It's extremely important that that outreach effort to encampments continue. Before COVID-19 started, there were porta potty fights and issues about permitting and approval. We've gone way beyond that to helping people in encampments. That needs to continue. And finally, I'm concerned about the tone of the discussion about homeless housing today. There may well be specific problems at that one motel, but the great majority of the shelters and the housing projects that are permanent supportive housing in this county, you don't even know where they are because they don't create problems. Homeless people are generally not causing problems, and I would appreciate if you would discuss them as though they were fellow citizens of our county, human beings that deserve dignity, respect, and our assistance to help them overcome their problems. Thank you.
Thank you. That conclude?
No.
Okay.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you have the meeting running in the background, please mute those devices and please speak directly into the phone rather than using your speakerphone option, and you may begin your comments.
Okay, thank you, Flo. This is Liz. I am a resident of District 1, the Fairness District, and I'm calling today to just echo what Nikki had said before me, that the reason why we are having to call in and really oppose this item is just because we don't trust SHRA to do the right thing for the unhoused community. Unhoused people need to be at the decision-making table, and this issue right here with your decisions that have been made or in the process of being made that Nav Gill brings to the board and little often changes when that happens is indicative of a larger, deeper issue, right? The fact that you guys have a jail expansion plan, the fact that the homeless are continuously criminalized, it's actually a budget issue, right? We need to recognize the fact that the two county jails are some of the largest forms of public housing that this county has, which is atrocious. It's deeply, deeply disturbing, especially during this global pandemic when all of the injustices that we see normally are accelerated. So not only do we need the decision-making process to involve more community, but we need you to really, and Nav, your office especially, needs to listen to community. We just held a press conference outside the People's Budget. We recognize that 71% of the budget goes to the criminal justice system, which includes the courts, probation, the jails, the sheriff's budget. That gets 37% of our discretionary funds. And that's not okay with us, and it changes now. And I just need you all to do better. And Sue Frost and Susan Peters and everyone, please have a heart. Please listen to the unhoused community. Please see them as human beings who are deserving of having their basic needs met. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude? Okay.
Caller, please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you're listening to the meeting in the background, please silence those devices, and please speak directly into the phone and not use your speaker option, and please begin your comments.
Hello, speaker, are you there?
And I do have a note that there was one more person who requested to speak, and they're trying to get them on the phone now for this item.
For this call?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I'm going to end the call on this one. Not sure what happened to that caller.
Do you want to try again?
Yeah, they can try that on the back end and get them in.
Okay.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes. If you're listening to the meeting in the background, please silence those devices and please speak directly into your phone rather than using your speaker option, and please start with your comments.
Hi. My name is Gigi, and I'm calling to support increased funding for social services like housing, drug abuse, and mental health. The funding has decreased over the last decade, not as a function of decreasing revenue, but as a function of shifting priorities. We have the funds, but we've chosen to police and incarcerate rather than prevent and treat issues that have very easily previously identified root causes. I'd like to comment on Sue Frost's work program that she has sent updates about recently, in which she selected only unemployed homeless people. She did not talk to unhoused families. And then she said that they could just not stay clean, which is the equivalent of saying, today I decide that I will change my brain chemistry. AA and NA exist with tokens and milestones because it's a lifelong endeavor. It's not a singular moment where people just clean up because they got a job. It's a disingenuous program, and I'm embarrassed that she keeps using it as proof that homelessness cannot be helped. Homeless people are residents, and they should be in residential areas. As a constituent that has time to speak, I want to use my voice to help those that don't have the means to call, mail, or show up to tell you what they need, which is less police and more housing and more mental health care. We do not need the sheriff showing up at encampments. We need to build facilities where people can get mental health and secure housing. You should listen to your constituents who are residents that happen to be unhoused. Their voices matter. Fund social services, fund family, which was previously funded, except that funding was allocated later to police enforcement. So it's not like we're taking the sheriff's money. We're just taking back the money that was previously allocated for these services that support our community. So I advocate that all the funding for the main jail be given to create more mental health facilities and any other funding to increase housing for people who are currently unhoused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and that concludes the comments.
Great, thank you. And I thank again everyone that took time to use the new technology to issue their comments on this item.
Oh, they're transferring one more person.
Okay, I'm going to have to, after this call, this is it.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, caller. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes. Caller?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You have 3 minutes to make your comments, and silence all the meetings in the background if you're listening to it somewhere else, and if you could speak directly into the phone rather than your speaker.
Yes. Thank you so much. I got disconnected. I was on mute. I want to start by thanking Supervisor Cerna. I was really upset when the Sure Stay got brought in because nobody of my neighbors knew what was happening, and we only found out about Sure Stay after all of us started talking about different instances in crime, from public intoxication, indecent exposure, multiple car break-ins, and most recently a fierce attack on our judge neighbor whose dog received 50 stitches and is going rabies treatment. I myself had an individual attempt to break into my house, which again, thank you to Cerna's office for finding out the name of the individual, Dana Montgomery, who subsequently died after SAC PD picked him up 2 blocks from us and dropped him off at the light rail station. That is an investigation that's underway, and that I'm hoping to have Supervisor Cerna and your help to look into what SAC PD is doing. I do not agree, however, that the management at Sure Stay has been doing a fantastic job, and I don't believe that the SAC PD extra force in our neighborhood has been all that beneficial. I have had multiple talks with a couple of officers because they are actually driving extremely fast in our neighborhood and running a couple of stop signs. So again, I reiterate my neighbor Stewart's comment on allocating some of this money towards helping with private security that does a more eloquent job. We have a lot of young residents. I myself are in my early 30s, first homeowner in my entire family. I love this neighborhood, and I thank you for recognizing the issues of bringing a shelter into a residential area without necessarily finding the right resources. I agree that we need to not pit the interests of home individuals at odds with those of homeless individuals. Our neighborhood has experienced an uptick in crime, and again, some of the incidents have been tied back to this project. It's not all the homeless people, but it doesn't do them any service to have an influx of behavior that contributes to their misrepresentation. So again, I'm asking, emerging the board, Director Kavanaugh, Director Edwards, to appropriate funds for the time being to provide public safety resources to our area, as well as resources to the neighbors at the Sure Stay, and to also look into some of the encampments. There's a couple of broken down RVs that are still there. There has been at least 3 fires within the last week that have been potentially tied to arson. And just wanted to ask Supervisor Cerna to again continue looking into the death of Dana Montgomery at the hands of SAC PD. And if there's any additional changes to the September 30th proposed ending of the contract with Sure Stay, please come to us. We are a good neighborhood. We are trying to do the best we can for our fellow homeless individuals. But again, we are seeing a lot of different attacks. Myself, traumatized about what happened to me, having somebody attempt to break into my house, not knowing who to call other than 911, them sounding the PD department, and then again, this individual dying. I have been in touch with his mother, and we're still trying to figure out what happened. So
Great.
again, thank you, Cerna.
Yeah, thank you for your time and your testimony. Thank you. Okay, we are done with public testimony. All right. Bring it back to the board for any last comments, deliberation. If not, if there aren't any comments, I'd like to move the item. And I just want to respond to one comment that was made by a speaker about our tone today relative to the neighborhood. I just want to make it clear that we have all of us have a responsibility to all of our constituents, whether they are sheltered or not, whether they are on hard times or not. And certainly, I'm very appreciative to our staff, to city staff, to Sacramento Steps Forward, to the Sacramento Police Department, everyone that's been trying to do their very best to respond in an emergent capacity, not just to the challenge of homelessness, but to a challenge of people that are suffering that circumstance in the middle of a pandemic, which is unprecedented. But we have a responsibility to make sure that we are going to help those that need the help that they deserve. But we cannot ignore a different part of our constituency and their concerns to do that. We have a responsibility. It's sometimes a very difficult one at that, to balance the needs of the wide breadth of who we represent. And so that's why I do take a little issue with the challenge that our tone is directed just towards the residential neighborhood around Church Day. It's my disposition that I have that responsibility to respond as best I can, and certainly through our capable staff to continue to look at the needs of the surrounding community and to the people that deserve the services. Are there any other comments? I don't think I heard a second. Was there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Frost. If there are no further questions, please, or comments, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Great, thank you. We do have closed session?
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right. With that, we will recess till 2 o'clock. This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll and reestablish a quorum?
Yes, Supervisors Frost. Here. Kennedy.
Here.
Natoli.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
Cerna.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we're taking item 43 so we can get the results of the ballot. This is the Watt Avenue Property and Business Improvement District public hearing on the renewal of the district and the levy of assessments, tabulation of assessment ballots, and adopt resolutions renewing the district and authorizing the levy of assessments for fiscal year 2021. The environmental determination is exempt.
Very good. Okay.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Dorothy Kodani with the County Engineering Division. Happy to report that the renewal passed, and and Rebecca Evans was there to get the good news right away. So thank you very much. And with that, unless you have any questions, we'd like to move on the rest of the item. So as far as Resolution 1, we have some fill-ins that we can read into the record. Okay. Section 2, at the close of the tabulation, the board had received 1 written protest, which the board finds and determines to not constitute a majority protest. Section 3, at the close of the tabulation, the board had received 66 assessment ballots totaling 49.56% of the total assessment to be levied, of which 77.36% was in favor of the assessment and 22.64% was in opposition. And with that, we request that your board move on to other actions.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions of staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to do that. I'd very happily move this item. It not only renews the P-bid, but enlarges it, and just tells us they're doing a good job there.
Okay, Chair will second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're ready for your 2 o'clock item, which is the Fruit Ridge Bait and Tackle PCN. This is a request for a public convenience or necessity letter for the Board of Supervisors to issue a Type 20 off-sale beer and wine liquor license to Fruit Ridge Bait and Tackle at 4234 Fruit Ridge Road, and this would be in the South Sacramento community. There is no environmental document on this one.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, board members. Benjamin Mejia from Office of Planning and Environmental Review. Actually, we're moving quite forward up here.
Different PowerPoint.
Oh, wait. No, that's not.
Let me let them know.
I think they're shuffling the
Shuffling around
presentations
the items. Okay, go to the next slide over here. So we'll that would work, doesn't it? Thank you. Okay, this is located at 4234 Fruit Ridge Road, in the east of the 42nd Street and Fruit Ridge Road intersection in the South Sacramento community. This is a request for a public convenience and necessity known as a PCN letter from the Board of Supervisors to issue a Type 20 off-sale beer and wine liquor license for an existing bait and tackle shop. Some of the key points is this project is located in a high crime reporting area. The census tract that it's in allows for 3 off-sale licenses. There are currently 3 there already. This license would put it over the high over-concentration portion to be 4. It is located in the South Sacramento EJ community. There are 29 establishments in a 1-mile radius with off-sale licenses. 16 of those are Type 20s and 13 are Type 21s. This does sit right on the border between the city of Sacramento and the county, right with Fruit Ridge. So 15 of those 29 licenses are located in the city of Sacramento. This could be a convenience store. Even though it's a bait and tackle, it could turn over to a convenience store, which would allow by right at this location and a future person to just transfer this Type 20 license without a board approval. The South Sacramento CPAC recommended denial on a 3-2 vote with 1 absent of the PCN request, bringing up concerns regarding crime in the area and existing saturation. It did go to the CPAC twice. The first time it went, it was unanimously denied. At that time, the CPAC was very new. A lot of them didn't know what a PCN process was. I wasn't at that meeting, so I felt that they should go back. I went and explained the PCN process to the CPAC, and then they heard it again and did that vote at 3-2. We are requesting denial of the request for this PCN letter based on the South Sacramento CPAC recommendation for denial. Also, that there is a large number of off-sale licenses in the area, and that the census tract is currently saturated, and the addition of license at this location would cause that census tract to be over-concentrated. And I'm available for questions.
Okay. Any questions for Manny? Supervisor Kennedy.
Thank you, May. If the board were to not go with staff recommendation, would it have to come back to be conditioned?
No, because the conditions are in the report. The sheriff's and the business license conditions would move forward with it.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. I guess the only comment I have is I did have a chance to speak with Leanne during my briefing about this, and this is an establishment that lies at the border with District 2 and is at the very south, it's across the street from the south end of one of the neighborhoods that I know my colleagues understand I pay quite a bit of attention to, and there's already a number of liquor stores within that neighborhood in District 1, but also the entirety of the corridor of Fruit Ridge in that area. So I just want to say I appreciate staff's diligence and attention to this in terms of the over-concentration part, and I'll certainly be supporting staff's recommendation. But with that, I'd look for a motion.
Well, also the applicant's in the lobby.
Oh.
So if you want to talk to the applicant at all, they came down.
No, we're not having anyone in chambers.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
fine. They were told, I think, that they were going to be able to speak, so.
Well, someone needs to make sure they understand that we're not,
Yeah.
only staff and media are permitted right now in chambers.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, you just said, though, they were told they would have an opportunity to speak by who?
Let me clarify. I think what happened is that they had asked, Leanne had mentioned that if there were any questions, we will work to bring them in, but it wasn't that they were needed in here. In
Okay.
case there was questions about any condition, if anything needed to be changed, that was the nature of the comments to them.
Great.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Supervisor Kennedy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understand the chair's comments, but I don't support staff recommendation. I think it's fairly arbitrary. We do need economic development of any kind down in that area, and I think that it is conditioned well, and being that it's only beer and wine, so I disagree with the final findings by staff on this one, but I appreciate your work on it.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
I'm going to move that we approve the PCN.
Okay, okay, it's been moved by Supervisor Kennedy, seconded by Supervisor Frost. Please vote.
And the motion carries with Supervisor Cerna and Supervisor Natoli voting no.
Great, thank you. All right. Continuing to play the part of Leanne.
Okay, so your next item is, we have a few minutes. Do you want to take your nominations?
Good idea.
Item 55. Give you guys a second to get to your documents.
Say the number again?
Item 55.
55, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so you are continuing to August 11th, the Sacramento Environmental Commission. You're continuing to August 18th, Area 4 Agency on Aging Advisory Council, Carmichael Recreation and Park District, Civil Service Commission, Rio Linda Alberta Community Planning Advisory Council, and the Sacramento County Treasury Oversight Committee. For your matters today, we have the Adult and Aging Commission.
Chiefs are recommending continuing the item until August 18th.
Cemetery Advisory Commission.
Chiefs recommend continuing the item till August 18th as well.
That's what I have on my notes. My notes show August 18th.
I have August, I said, my notes say Chiefs recommend continuing the item until August 18th.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Disability Advisory Commission.
Same.
And Fair Oaks Community Planning Advisory Council, Supervisor Peters.
Thank you. Please continue this to July 28th.
Okay. And then we have First Five Sacramento Commission.
Chiefs recommend continuing the item until August 18th.
Block Management Association.
Chiefs recommend continuing the item till August 18th.
Mission Oaks Recreation and Park District, Supervisor Peters.
I'd like to reappoint Jeffrey Rothberg.
Okay. And then we have Sacramento County Youth Commission, Supervisor Natoli.
Oh, I still need to speak with Ms. Williams, and so we'll continue for 2 weeks to the 28th, please.
Okay. Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Commission.
Please continue to August 18th.
And we have South Sacramento Area Community Planning Advisory Council, Supervisor Cerna.
Please continue to August 18th for D1.
Okay, and then Supervisor Kennedy.
Please continue to July 28th.
Okay. And that concludes your nominations.
Did we have a speaker?
No, we do have a speaker for item 54. Yes, we do.
Oh, 54, okay.
Oh, they need to get, we move so fast. Let me see if they can get her on the phone. We do have a few minutes.
We have a speaker on 54.
No, so this is confusing. We've got nominations identified as item 55 here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got two, right. You got 54 and 55, you're right, Phil.
Yeah.
Oh, they had the wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This was misnumbered. We were on item 54.
Right.
We do have a speaker for item 54. They're getting the person on the phone.
Okay.
And they're going to transfer in right now.
The commenter.
Okay.
Nominee. It's the first.
Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to make your comments. If you are listening to this meeting on another device, please mute that device. Also, please speak directly into the phone rather than speaking through your speakerphone, and please start with your comments.
Hi there. I would prefer not to state my name. Brown Act does not require public members to state their names for a public comment. I'm a lock property owner, and I'm concerned about the ongoing and persistent Brown Act violations of Lock Management Association. There have been no convened public LMA, Lock Management Association, meetings in 1 full year since July 15th, 2019, when Supervisor Natoli attended the Lock meeting. Second point, expenditures and allocations have been made and are continuing to being made from our Treasury Fund of the Common Interest Development Treasury Fund, the General Members Lock Management Association's Treasury Fund. And there have been no meetings, no public meetings. We don't know what's going on. There have been no board elections as required for the 6 property owner seats. And let's see, the supposed last remaining board member sent out a letter to all of the property owners 2 days ago, claiming that he is appointing a board member to one of the property owner seats. You can't do that legally without first amending the bylaws, and the bylaws have never been ratified. The amendments that were proposed were never ratified by Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. So he can't just appoint people without a proper election. Also, Senate Bill recently passed, 323, requires elections by the general members of the association. And his board seat is also invalid under that new legislation since he is not a property owner. Thank you very much, and a better solution would be to transition the Lock Management Association Common Interest Development into a community service district to take care of repairing the public sidewalks and walkways as was supposed to have been done in the last 16 years by this Lock Management Association. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, just very quickly, earlier in our nomination items, we chiefs of staff have been conducting interviews. The application period, correct me if I'm wrong, Flo, continues to remain open for applications for the 5 seats which the board can appoint to. There are some stipulations behind some of those vacancies, but I know that we've had at least 2 applicants, and that if others are received, then we'll continue to go through the normal process. I appreciate the clerk's office assistance. I would just note, too, we did receive notice that there apparently had been some appointment made as referenced by the speaker, so we'd ask the clerk's office to take a look at that. I think you got notice yesterday that there was some question about, but there is 1 remaining board member, as the speaker said, and we are again working on this side of it to try to fill vacancies through our normal process here. And I thank the advice of council who have June's assisted in this regard on a number of occasions with good advice. So thanks, June. Thanks. That's all I had.
Great. Thank you. All right.
Okay. Now we're moving on to item 52. This is the Turnbull Place. It's a community plan amendment and rezone. of approximately 5.56 acres from Ag Residential 5 to Residential 5 zoning districts with natural streams, combining overlay to Residential 3, zoning district with north-south combining overlay, and a tentative subdivision map, special development permit, and design review to divide approximately 5.56 acres into 12 lots. The property is there's some more detail on here, but I'm just going to jump to the property location at 5536 Turnbull Circle in the Fair Oaks community, and the environmental determination is a negative declaration.
Hey, you're on, Manny.
Okay, wait for that slide to come up. Great. Good afternoon, board members. Amanda Mejia, Planning and Environmental Review. The project site, as shown on the map, is located they're off of Turnbull Lane. This is a community plan amendment and rezone for 5.4 acres from AR5 to RD5, and also from RD5 to RD3. A tentative subdivision map to divide approximately 5.56 acres into 12 single-family lots in the RD3 natural stream zoning districts, a special development permit to allow 12 single-family residential lots to be served by a private drive, and a design review for compliance. There is the map of the subdivision. Note that on lot number 7, there's an existing home that will remain, with the other 11 lots being developed. This project is consistent with the general plan and applicable community plan. The general findings can be made in support of the request, deviations to the special development permit. It's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of use of block pattern, lot configuration, and lot size. The environmental document was prepared was a negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program concentrating on biological resources and cultural resources. It did go before the design review committee, met and recommended the project in substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines. Condition number 3, design of the home subject to a non-discretionary design review on condition 3 that the homes will have to go before the review committee. The Fair Oaks Community Planning Advisory Council met on May 1st and recommended approval 4-0 with lot number 4. Condition number 4 being that lots 1 through 6 and number 12 be limited to 1 story. Another thing is number 5, condition number 5, install private screen fencing during project construction and install permanent landscaping along the north perimeter of the properties of lots 5 and 12. The Planning Commission met on May 11th and recommended approval 5-0. Staff's recommendation is to further modify condition number 6. The original condition required single-story limitation in perpetuity. This will be modified to require single-family limitation only by the developer himself for several of the lots 1 through 6 and 12. Based on the modification requires single-family lots, but that the futures would not be held to that, given that the adjacent homes lack similar limitations. There's nothing unique to site topography and other circumstances, and also risk of enforcing that would be probably difficult. The recommended action is to determine that the environmental analysis is adequate and complete, the approval of the resolution authorizing an amendment to the Fair Oaks Community Plan, approval of the ordinance for a rezone from the project site, approval of the tentative subdivision map, approval of the special development permits to allow the 12 lots to be served by the private drive, and to finding that the project is in substantial compliance with the countywide design guideline standards. Any questions?
Oh, okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, this is amazing, this amount of land is available in
kind of an
Fair
landlocked
Oaks.
parcel, so it was kind of hidden.
I didn't know you had any AR5 left out in District 3, so.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time, and then this, I didn't know what NS zoning combining overlay was, so Leanne explained that to me.
Good.
I think there are a lot of things to recommend this project in that well, first of all, the CPAC and the Planning Commission both sent their agreement to move forward. The lots are very, very similar in size to the rest of the neighborhood, which is always important in these infill projects. And did I understand Leanne right in saying that this is a reduction of lots from what the current zoning is?
Yeah, because it's going to RD3, which makes them larger lots.
Yeah, so there's
right,
fewer, less traffic, less noise, less.
They could do it with the existing zoning on portion, if they could have a lot more lots, smaller lots.
So, are there anyone signed up to speak?
No.
Okay. Well then, if no one else has any comments, I would move approval.
Second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
5 minutes.
So for item 53, we just have a few minutes before we can take this item. And we are going to continue. We're going to ask for a motion to continue, but we do need to wait till 2:30 in case someone is watching and planning to tune in at 2:30.
Okay. Let's officially be in recess for 5 minutes then. call back to order this meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? Establish a quorum.
Yes, Supervisors Frost.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Natoli.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
Cerna.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Okay, for item 53, I need a motion to continue this to July 28th. This is the zoning code and county code amendments related to the industrial hemp. It's a zoning ordinance amendment to chapters 3 and 7 of the Sacramento County Zoning Code, and to introduce an ordinance adding chapter 6.87 to the county code related to the industrial hemp.
Okay, very good. Mr. Tully, did you have any comments on this?
No, well, they're going to do a little additional outreach through the Ag Commissioner's Office with, in particular, the Delta Council, and appreciate Nav and folks paying attention to that. So I think 2 weeks should give us sufficient time to get those comments, which we weren't able to garner in time for this meeting. So.
Okay.
So,
do we need a motion to continue then?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would move it. So move.
Okay, Chair will second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay.
Okay, and now you are on to county executive comments.
Okay. Comments by the county executive.
And then you have your Board of Supervisors comments.
Okay. Supervisor Frost.
Thank you, Chair Cerna. I wanted to say a few words honoring a constituent in my district, Mr. Joe Chu Yu, who has received the Chinese American World War II Congressional Medal of Honor. And this recognition comes from the Chinese American World War II Veterans Recognition Project. The first Congressional Gold Medal ceremony will be in Washington, D.C., and the presentation will be done by Congress. Joe Chu Yu was born on December 23, 1921, in Red Bluff to his parents Chu Su Lim and Ying Shi. His father, Chu Lu Lim, immigrated to the United States to flee persecution in China. The Chus are one of 5 original families to settle and continue to reside in Red Bluff. The Chinese families were very closely connected to one another throughout the western coast of Arizona, and they supported one another. Joe Chu Yu married his wife, Helen Mabel Chu, and they and their family stayed in Red Bluff. Joe Chu Yu's family stressed the importance of education, and Mr. Yu attended UC Berkeley as an engineering major. Joe Chu Yu was drafted into the 1908 Army Service Unit at Camp Beale, California in September 1945, and was an active duty service member until December 1946. After his service, Mr. Yu returned to school and finished at Chico State, where he earned his bachelor's degree in accounting and eventually earned his CPA as a tax accountant. He also helped to operate his family's restaurant until it was sold. After retiring as a tax accountant, he then traveled all over the world. Today, Mr. Yu is 98 years young and is still very active, preparing his own taxes, going to senior center twice a week. He lives with his daughter, Diane Casa, and enjoys spending time with his granddaughter, Jessica. Mr. Yu has always been a major animal lover, having lots of cats, dogs, and for all of his life. Throughout his life, he has always prioritized family, and today the Chu, Ong, Dong, and Yi family are a massive population, which is what fills his heart every night. And I just wanted to extend a thank you to Mr. Yu's granddaughter, Jessica, who reached out to me and shared how proud she was of her grandpa, and wanted to thank him for his service and honor him with this very prestigious award. Thank you.
Very nice, thank you. Supervisor Tully.
I certainly thank Supervisor Frost and congratulate Mr. Yu, and certainly for his recognition, and their entire family, obviously. Kind of along the lines of our veterans, it's come to my attention that the County Veteran Services Office is slated to move from its downtown location to, I I guess, the Norwood Highway 80 area. I don't know if it's a Research Drive facility or not. And I've been contacted by at least one party, I think on behalf of a couple of others, as to accessibility of services and so forth. We're a big county, and the downtown location may not have been the most accessible, but it certainly was a bit more central. And I guess now I just wanted to ask if maybe you could provide some information to our board, and if this is a permanent move, is this a temporary move? And last, I would ask, was our Veterans Commission consulted? We've had the Veterans Commission in place now for, going on close to 2 years, year and a half, and we really haven't heard. We haven't had a chance to hear back from some of their work. I know the clerk has staffed them and so forth, but I guess I'm interested to know, what sort of feedback or consultation we did with our Veterans Commission that's designed to advise this board, but also the nature of the decision and, the currency of it. I understand it may be as soon as just a few weeks off. And if so, what does it mean to accessibility for veterans of all age and from all walks of life in this county? I mean, we have to be located somewhere, and I'm glad we have a Veteran Services office, but maybe is there the ability to kind of split that north and south with, partnering in some of our other facilities. We have, if it's actually co-locating with a DHA facility, because that's the branch that is under in this county, is there ability to have some of those services in the south or the eastern part of the county? I don't know. Again, it may make sense to have everybody under one roof, but they're a fairly small contingent of folks, but mighty in their efforts and very important. So I just wanted to put it out there, and hopefully you could get us some information.
We'll get you a memo on that.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
All right, very good. Any comments from Supervisor Kennedy or Supervisor Peters? Yeah. So I know I've spoken to Supervisor Kennedy about this. I think he shares a similar disposition and has shared that publicly here. At the last meeting, I had made mention at the conclusion of the meeting an interest in getting some information in the form of an informational item coming back to this board on the prospect of moving the 3 county-wide elected official votes, the voting for those 3 elected officials to presidential election years. And I think since that time, all of us, at least I know I have in my hand hundreds of cards from my constituents who are supportive of the concept of doing that, as well as hundreds of emails. And I think, as I just mentioned, others have received the same. I have had a chance to talk to the CEO about this, as well as communicate back to some of the advocates that are interested in this. This is time sensitive. The way I understand it, it needs to come back to this board by the 28th, I believe?
Correct.
So what I'd like to ask the CEO to do, working alongside County Counsel's office, obviously, is to do what's necessary to do exactly that, to bring it back before this board for consideration on the 28th. And I know that others on this board may find that a bit rushed, but again, that is due to the fact that this does have some time constraints. So I know some have lined up in the queue here to speak, so we'll start with Supervisor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I am in complete agreement with you on, I think that we owe it to a large number of the population to at least have this heard before this body, and it is time sensitive. Nav, I have spoken with proponents and your recommendation, and they actually will be sending over proposed language that's going to be based largely on what San Francisco did. Number of communities have done this, so we're not reinventing the wheel. So that could help with the timing.
Yep. I think what I can do is we will have a memo that will lay out for you what the process is. There's 2 different ways you can do it. We'll lay out both on how to do it. If there's language that you have, we can put that in the staff report too.
Is that a memo now that you foresee giving to us just outside of the construct of a hearing, right? It would just be as soon as it can be drafted and delivered? Okay.
We could do that, and then we will put that on the agenda too. That way you can discuss it.
Got it. Thank you very much. Supervisor Peters.
So if I understand it, you're talking about a charter amendment, and that would go on this year's November ballot?
Yes, that's what the proponents have suggested.
Okay, so then the change would be 4 years after that? Is that correct?
It's for the next subsequent presidential
Oh,
election.
well,
right?
yeah. Well, that,
Wait, well.
no, I think it would be 2
I think
years
that's why we
after
need a
that.
memo.
It'd be 2 years after that. So what are your thoughts about, that would be flipping, right now we have 5 seats open on gubernatorial, not open, 5 seats running on gubernatorial, and we have 3 on presidential. And if we would need to try and maintain some evenness, we'd have to move a couple of the supervisorial seats. Otherwise, you have 6 seats and then 2 seats.
I don't know what.
Talking about sheriff and DA.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the countywide.
I know, but you would have 6 people running. Right now, we have.
5 and 3.
Yeah, 5 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and this would make it 6 and 2.
Right.
So wouldn't you move one of the supervisorial seats?
I don't know why. I don't know that there's a rule book somewhere that says you have to do it that way. But I think that's probably what is going to come out of a memo.
I mean, the memo we can lay out is what's the process to move the DA, the sheriff, and the assessor. And basically, yeah, I can't go any further than that. It's not agenda, but we'll lay that out for you what the process is.
I also have concern about the time for the public to be knowledgeable of the proposal. This is a pretty big change, and is there a plan to advertise this or get the word out on newsletters and that sort of thing?
It's a good question. It's probably going to have to be part of the memo.
I think.
Well, who's writing the memo, you or?
He just said he's writing the memo. I'm pointing to the CEO.
I'm going to write a memo that's going to lay out with county council what's the process if you want to change in any kind of charter amendment you want to do.
So what the rules are?
What the rules are. And after that, I'm going to present that to the board. It's for you to deliberate then on how you want to.
Okay, well then put in there, if you would, if there are rules about balance of the number of seats in each particular voting year.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is balance of seats. I heard you say public process?
Yes, public process.
Okay. Anything else from the rest of the board members you want to see?
Sure. Since we're talking about the body of this, the proponents have suggested that there is actually some good amount of research that shows that public participation increases at the local level when you have local elections that are in sync with presidential elections. So maybe there's a way someone could look at, for instance, the California Public Policy Institute to see what they have in terms of conclusions about that.
But that wasn't the public process I was referring to. I was talking about a potential charter change and getting people time to comment on it here before we vote on it.
I understand
That's
that.
the public process I was looking forward to.
This is in addition to that. This is in addition to that.
I think the way I'm hearing that question is what's the
impact?
Turnout.
Yeah.
What's the voter turnout in these different elections?
Right.
Gubernatorial versus presidential.
Yeah.
That's what you're at.
Well, not that isn't what you said a minute ago. I'm talking about something
No, there's
different than
two different
Supervisor
things.
Cerna.
Yeah,
Right.
I understand your question to be, what is the public process of doing a charter amendment? So there's another question that came up then is to look at it, what is the voter turnout?
Yeah, turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the different, two
Voter
different things.
participation.
Yeah, two
Yeah.
different things.
Anyone else have?
Yep, I do. Yep. Yeah, I do. I didn't know if Ms. Peters was
Are
done.
you done, Supervisor?
Okay. A couple things come to mind, and I think it will require a little bit of analysis to the question was asked earlier about, when this might occur, because that would have to be outlined in the charter amendment, the effective date of it. And I gather the proponents will have a particular view of it to happen sooner rather than later, but I think that range, whether it would happen, the upcoming election cycle, or it would happen, 4 years after that, you have current office holders. Obviously, we're in the midterm as relates to those terms of office. And so I think it's important to have that as at least part of the discussion, because I think you're picking the time. When would this become effective? Because I would imagine, and council will advise us, that's going to have to be, in whatever would be put before the voters. I would agree that it's important that, for the consideration this board would have, we would have to act by August the 7th. We have one more scheduled meeting between now and then, the 28th, as we all know. And so if we're going to have, public input, whatever one's view is of this about putting before the voters, I think getting the word out as quickly as possible. One, it's going to be an agenda item, and we may not have the staff report fully in hand until, days before the 28th. But I think that's important. I think, again, because if this board so chose, we'll be putting it before the voters, less than 4 months from now. It needs to have, some, not just a reflection that we're going to offer it, but any input that folks will want to offer. But if they don't know about it, it's tough for them to weigh in. So I think if there's a way to get some of that out, whether it's through newsletters or through the county news or whatever, to do our best. And of course, our agendas are public, and obviously there's some interest, as pointed out by the chair, with the postcards we're receiving. But I do agree that this will be the first time we put a charter amendment on in probably close to 20 years, and as a process we go through, obviously the voters will ultimately decide that. But I think it's not unimportant to make sure that even with a short amount of time, that we get that word out as best we can. One other thing I think would be important to include as background is to, as Supervisor Kennedy said, it's been done in a number of communities. Not all counties are charter counties. And so some may have additional and or less latitude to make those changes relative to election cycles. And I get the point about voter turnout. I think we want to encourage voter turnout, whatever the election cycle. But obviously there are numbers that will probably prove out what's been pointed out already, and that is that certain years and certain times, primaries versus generals will generate more voter interest and voter participation. So I guess, Nav, I would ask if someone can do some research. If there's been, as has been at least relayed to me, have been communities that have done this more recently. Some have it up for consideration, but not all of them require going to a charter. And I guess if we could have some understanding if it's gone before the voters in some communities where those are at, and particularly charter counties, that would be helpful to know. But back to my first point, I think having, again, the range of whatever it is would be before us. The language has to be simple enough for folks to understand. It has to be approved for a ballot. And if this board were to act in the affirmative on the question, whatever that looked like, basically there's a very short amount of time to get that to the registrar of voters. And so, the 28th is going to be the first and maybe the last opportunity in this election cycle to actually have that matter before us. So, I mean, time is going to get real crunched on this, and I think that it's going to be important that we have a good background, because there won't be much time to say we'll come back and let's answer those questions. We're going to have to do that in deliberations before, probably on that day. So, lastly, I would just ask that current office holders, if they don't tune in regularly to Channel 14, that they be notified of. Because they, from their own perspective, may want to weigh in. Obviously, this is for the voters to decide, but it's not inconsequential that folks who have, sought and been elected those offices may have their own thoughts about that, and certainly would appreciate having that information as well.
I'm kind of looking at county council, not to put county council on the spot, but there are two ways you can do a charter amendment. We'll give you the memo, but I just want to make sure the board realizes that there was a process that could have been done. Petition process, that date came and went. So that's not available at this point if you want to go in November. So there's only one path you have, which is for the board to put something in there.
Right.
And that's basically what we will give you both. You can make a decision how you want to do in the future, but those are your two options that you have.
Right. And if I could offer one other suggestion, again, I have no idea how we're going to end up on this item, but it may be that I don't know what our first August date is, but it might be wise if we get into this and there's a lot of discussion, whatever the direction that may come out of that, if there's a time needed to have a reservation of a time prior to the 7th of August. I would just note that
maybe one of the Wednesdays.
Yeah, again, it's not to burden anybody that may not have it on their calendar. I'm just thinking that if knowing how deliberative this board is in a good way, that we may need that extra week for, discussion for, and maybe not, but I just think it might be a good idea because otherwise the clock's going to run out, so.
No, we'll work on this.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Frost.
I just wanted to ask if a charter amendment is a supermajority vote, then would it require a 4-1 vote or more for a charter amendment?
4/5?
To put it on the ballot? 4/5?
We will answer that. We do not know because of our hand.
I think it does, but I was just curious.
We
Okay.
will answer that.
Okay.
I'll say I don't believe it does, because I remember when last time we did this in 1999, it was a number of 3-2 votes about what to put on the ballot. But maybe
maybe
the law has changed on that. But it's just because we're not approving; we're just approving the ordinance to go before the voters. But
I think that's correct. But we're starting to get into the.
Well, I know too much into detail. I just
Okay.
Too much detail. We'll take your input. I just want to make sure you all knew that there was 2 Pats. One is gone. The only Pats you got right now is with you guys. So if there's anything else you want in the memo, please let me know, and then.
Okay.
Okay, well, we can probably handle that offline because I think we're making county councils a little nervous here. Supervisor Peters?
So in your memo, if I'm doing this right, that would put the current sheriff, DA, and assessor in office till 2024.
I'm going to have to look in that and then give you an answer.
Okay.
Or it could go the other way. It could be a 2-year turnaround. Yeah.
Well,
I know you're right. It could go either. Yeah.
All right, I think we've beaten this up enough and stayed within Brown Act, so. Okay, I know we have an adjournment. Mr. Foley?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I trust maybe other board members will want to weigh in, but we may have seen over the past weekend that one of our longtime community members and someone who's served on county boards and commissions in a very active capacity, Mr. Ernest Brown, passed away. I'll just give a little bit of background for those that didn't know or don't know him or didn't know of him. Ernie was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in May of 1934. He completed his education at Lehigh University and was married to his wife, who passed away in 2016 for 55 years. During their time together, early in their years, they moved from Maryland to Utah to New Jersey and eventually put down deep roots here in the Sacramento community. Ernie was a U.S. Army veteran and then spent most of his career in the aerospace industry. Following his retirement in 1994, he decided that it was time to give back to the community in other ways, and so he devoted his time to a number of nonprofit organizations throughout the Greater Sacramento County area, and was active in particular on 2 county boards and commissions. He was a member of the Children's Coalition going back to 2009 as far as the records show. And he also served very actively on the Human Services Coordinating Council, and some of you may, in your interaction with the Coordinating Council, I think he served as chair of that group. And I know I had an opportunity over the past several years on a couple of occasions to address that body, and Ernie was always very gracious in his comments, certainly in his conduct, and he was very interested in, the outcomes and the way that this county could best serve not just children, but certainly people from different walks of life with different challenges. And he came at it, I think, from a very humanistic standpoint, and one where obviously he had a deep concern and caring attitude towards his fellow human being. And maybe part of that ties back to his long time involvement as a member of the Trinity Cathedral congregation, where he was in the choir for 35 years. And it was noted in his obituary that one of his greatest joys was certainly to participate in the choir, where he sang bass. And last, I would say he was noted. He was rather quiet, sometimes unassuming, but he was intelligent, kind, and had a good sense of humor. And so, with that, I would just note that his service to this community certainly hasn't gone unnoticed, and I know his passing is mourned by many who knew and had a chance to work with him. But I would ask that today we adjourn in memory of Ernie Brown, and again, thank him for all his contributions to betterment of our community over the years. Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, if there's no further business before this board, we will adjourn in memory of Ernie Brown today.
Good job.